The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is State Treasurer Dale Falwell. I think we're going to do an audio check.
LGC staff can let me know you can hear the treasurer, please.
Thumbs up. Susan, can you hear us? Thumbs up. Okay. Okay.
There you go.
Thank you. I'd like to call the September 22nd meeting of the North Carolina Local Government Commission to order remotely here in Terrell County at the unbelievable 4-H camp of this area. In calling the meeting to order, the first thing we do is call the roll. Cindy, would you call the members?
Yes, thank you. This is Cindy Aiken, Assistant General Counsel. Auditor Wood. Here in person. Secretary Marshall. Here in person. Secretary Penny.
Here.
Also in person. Mr. Burns is absent, correct? Mr. Butler is here in person. Ms. Harvey? Here. Thank you. Ms. Harvey is virtual. Ms. Hoffman is absent. Mr. Philbeck?
Here.
Is here virtually. Thank you. And Treasurer Falwell?
Here.
Person. Yes, sir. Shall I do staff? Okay. Staff in person in the room are Sharon Edmondson, Secretary, Jennifer Wimmer, Director of Debt Management, Victoria Bledsoe, Trustee Tech, Debbie Tomasco, Cindy Aiken, and Susan McCullen. She's nodding. Yes. Thank you. Susan's virtual. All right.
Okay. With that, I'm going to ask Secretary Marshall, because presence here is special for all of us, but extra special for her to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance, also in our toast to the flag, and then she can give a few opening comments about 4-H. She'll stand and join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of North Carolina and pledge to the old North State love, loyalty, and faith.
Thank you.
While I'm standing, let me tell you what the 4-H pledge is, since we're here. I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my world, my community. It is a delight to be here. I am a lifelong 4-H'er. I wouldn't be where I am today, but for 4-H. I have helped 4-H raise money for this through the General Assembly, through outside sources, and this is a gem of a 4-H camp. It's a gem of a camp for anybody. Just driving up and seeing Bull Bay out there, beautiful blue against the green of Mother Nature, is just no more calm place, better place, serene place in North Carolina than this. 4-H serves approximately 250,000 youth in North Carolina. I serve on the development board continuously. I'm an emeritus member. 4-H is all about developing life skills for kids. It used to be agriculture, but it's not limited to that. We used to say it's not what the boy can do for the pig, but what the pig can do for the boy. Because in all the projects, kids have to learn more, they have to be able to express themselves, they have to be able to keep records. They learn all kinds of safety and great activities. Yeah, can you hear me? That's right. 4-H, I haven't been here in a couple of years, and of course Hurricane Matthew did a little rearrangement for a while and had to have some repair work done. But there's a ropes course out here, there's a shooting range, there's an archery range, swimming pool, in addition to the river sports here, bay sports. 4-H's mission is to develop leaders for tomorrow, whether they're agricultural or urban. 4-H gets very little state money. It is a federal act, the Smith-Lever Act, and 4-H that created all of this. And actually 4-H in North Carolina, we're one of the first 3 or 4 states. So 4-H is more than 100 years old in this state. And it began in eastern North Carolina in corn clubs and tomato clubs. So it's evolved a lot because today the projects are things like rocketry, bicycle safety, just on, health and nutrition, care for veterans, just all kinds of enthusiastic things where kids can develop their skills. So that's a very shorthanded view of 4-H in North Carolina today.
Thank you, Secretary Marshall. We're getting ready to go into our conflicts of interest statement. But before I do so, I want to tell you why we're here. I came down a year or two ago and met with Tommy Everett and David Clegg and many of the other local elected officials regarding the financial implosion of the water and sewer system of this county. And it was during the COVID period, and I said, what other types of opportunities are. You know, prison had closed down. I guess the biggest cleaner of sheets and pillowcases and towels had closed down. Half the properties not on the tax roll. Property tax base had dropped 26% between St. Patrick's Day and July 4th of 20. And there's less population here than there is at Myers Park or West Forsyth High School. And their only option is to tax the bears. The bears don't want to be taxed. So I've always had this idea to take the local government commission out of power. And in the words of Congressman Howard Coble's mother, who, when he would go home on Sundays, he would say, "Thank you for this big spread of food." Mrs. Coble would look at him and say, "Howard, it just didn't jump up on the table by itself." So from Sarah to the LGC staff, to the people who served us lunch today, to these local elected officials, we have some here from the city also, to these council of state members who made the choice to come down here and join us in person, and Mr. Butler, this just didn't jump up on the table by itself. I think everybody is involved in this. It deserves a huge round of applause. I'm glad to be joined by my wife, Cynthia, and some of you know works at Old Salem, and she's a muddy sneaker. So if she steps out for a few moments, she's probably going to be walking around and looking at the different type of plants and other things. I have informed the staff here at 4-H that she's from DC originally. That's from the Directionally Challenged. And they said, well, there's water on one side. There's water on one side, soybeans on one side, water treatment plant on one side. So we think we got it confined in here. So hope you enjoy that. And some of you others also brought your spouses here. Please take a moment to review our conflict of interest statement. Please take a moment to review the agenda. I'm going to ask that at least 3 things based on input that I've gotten from many of you be pulled off the consent agenda. Does anyone have an actual potential or the appearance of conflict of interest regarding the matters that are before us, either on the consent or the non-consent agenda? Mr. Philbeck.
I have a conflict with the City of Kings Mountain's electric upgrades. I'm involved as broker in a piece of property that is involved in that. So I'd ask to be excused on the City of Kings Mountain.
Thank you. Any others?
Mr. Chairman, I have a potential or appearance of conflict with the Guilford County matter. My husband is in the firm that's on council.
Okay. Any others? Okay. Kings Mountain is not on the consent agenda. So, Mr. Philbeck, we will recognize your conflict and excuse you from voting. Without objection, based on the input I've gotten from members, I would like to pull the Guilford County school bond off the consent agenda and deal with it separately, as well as the Sunset Beach transaction and Project Grace of the County of New Hanover County. All right, hearing no objection, without objection, we'll continue to follow our protocol of anybody who makes a motion or a second to a motion will be considered a yes vote. So do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes of August 2nd, 2022?
So moved. State Auditor Wood.
Second. Second, Secretary Penny. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, and members, if you will speak as loudly, position your mics in between you, and you may need to scooch a little closer. We'll monitor that as we go along. So Secretary Marshall? Thank you. Mr. Butler? Thank you. Mrs. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Victoria, or someone, if you can pull these toward us just as far as you can, these mics, and just put them right up against the table. It might help out a little bit. Okay, now we're going to turn the meeting over to Jennifer and Susan. Jennifer's joining us in person, as far as you can get them towards us. Okay, and Susan's joining us remotely about our FDIC response items, which are an attachment A, which we'll take individually.
So this is Jennifer Wimmer, Director of Debt Management. The first FPIC agenda item is the Edgecombe County Water and Sewer District number 4 USDA revenue bond to discuss in detail. I'm turning this one over to Sharon.
Thank you, Jennifer. Edgecombe County is asking for approval of $503,000 USDA revenue bond with a 40-year term. This is for a sewer project that provided sewer to some of the residents of Speed in Edgecombe County and some of the surrounding unincorporated areas. They all had failing septic tanks. All but the $503,000 in bonds was grant funded by USDA and CDBG. We are now in the 8th year of the commitment from USDA, and they need to close the $503,000 in bonds. They have not done so to date because of operational issues at Edgecombe County. They have had late audits, significantly late audits for a number of years, and at times issues with their financial condition. The financial condition has improved greatly since their low point several years ago. And as of today, their audits are current. In fact, they've completed 2 audits since January. The county has tried several approaches to address its operational issues, including hiring a former audit firm to do their financial statements. And that was not successful. I mean, they tried that. We agreed with that approach, and it did not work. In January of 22, they hired a former very experienced finance officer to help them out. She has reorganized the finance office, helped them realign, if you will, the finance officer position to a CFO level position, and help them learn how to get ready for an audit in the Edgecombe County Finance Office. The previous finance officer retired in August, and they have an experienced interim in place now, and they are recruiting actively for a CFO. The consultant is on contract through 2023, and they have promised me that the 2022 audit will be on time and will have far fewer findings in it. If they don't close the revenue bonds before the commitment expires, they will have to repay USDA $3.2 million in grant funds, which will, of course, be detrimental to the county. This also impacts USDA North Carolina in that as long as the commitment is outstanding past 5 years, it reduces the amount of grant money that's available to other entities across the state. That impact gets increasingly large as time goes on. So if we get to year 10, which is as long as the commitment will last, that it will have a significant impact on USDA grant program. There are people on the phone from Edgecombe County, manager Eric Evans, consultant John Stark. Sorry, I misplaced my list. The interim finance officer also is on the phone. If members have any questions for them or any questions for me. ask some questions?
Yes, ma'am. Alder Wood.
So you're telling me that we have to approve this $503,000 loan for the rest of it or whatever it is to prevent Edgecombe County from paying back 3.2 million.
Yes, ma'am.
And they are aware that this was the case all along.
I would assume so. I mean, that was the deal that they made with USDA. Was They got the grant money, they got the revenue bonds.
So they have all these issues, and I've read their bank reconciliations, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, not being done time. And so I'm now being guilted into approving this $503,000.
We do have the option of, well, we have the option of tabling this item until the 22 audit. So the 22 audit comes in, and again, they promised me it'll be in on time. Like I said, the county did try. I felt like they made a significant effort when they fired their audit firm as their auditor and hired them to do financial statements and found another auditor. That did not work for a variety of reasons, not all of which were on the county.
Really?
Yes. I do think they've made a lot of progress with Jonna, working with them. Like I said, one of the things she did was train the finance office staff on how to get ready for an audit.
Help me understand, if your books are just in shape to begin with, how much work is there to get ready for an audit?
Other than to make sure everything ticks and ties and that all your adjusting entries have been posted. And Susan, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that there's a tremendous amount of work to do, but obviously in Edgecombe, there was issues with the bookkeeping not being current.
There you go.
I would agree with that, Sharon. There were issues with the books, so that delayed getting prepared for the audit, and that added significant time to the prep. And the history of lateness goes back several years. I think at least the last 3, but beyond that as well, I believe.
They have struggled since they lost their longtime finance officer 7 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I recall.
Alder Wood, I agree with you when this was first brought to me. And Sharon, can you give us maybe 30 seconds on how we've tried to work with USDA?
Sure.
So that you wouldn't feel the way you feel. Go ahead.
The treasurer did ask for a 2-year extension on this, and USDA came back with the ability to extend it up to 1 more year. I think we would probably be able to make a decision sooner than that based on the 22 audit if it comes in on time, which again, they've assured me it will. The USDA has tried to work with us on this. They understand the situation that Edgecombe's in, but they also understand the need to get the bond closed and off their commitment list.
I would just add that everybody's going through something, but Edgecombe County has been through a lot. They lost their biggest taxpayer, their biggest employer to an unbelievable fire. They were told that China Tire was going to come in years ago and held up one of the most valuable pieces of industrial sites in North Carolina. And then China Tire only recently said they weren't coming. And then there's been a long negotiation about even having to get somebody who's not going to come here to release the land so that Norris Tolson and Opie and all those others can do something else with it. So I went to Edgecombe County. I met with former LGC member Viola Harris, Opie, Norris Tolson, went out to the QVC factory. I forget how many tons of debris came out of that factory, but it's like thousands of tractor trailer loads of steel that come out of that burn site. And so that's why we went back to USDA, kind of explained all this to them. We were only able to get a 1-year extension. And if Edgecombe County were a stock, I think I'd buy it based on some of the tailwinds that I think they have coming their way with these, either the QVC site or the former China Tower site. So I'll be supporting this. Staff recommends it. Any other questions? My point of saying all that is I didn't take this lightly. There's no space between us about the audit reconciliation, but I just felt like people of Edgecombe County deserve me to go up there and really actually look at the situation. So I hear a motion to approve.
I was going to ask, you think that the things will resolve themselves in, or get a current 60 days?
Yes, the 22 audit is due by October 31st. I believe there's a good chance we'll get it by then. We definitely have it by December 1st.
And that's the only reason it's on. The only reason it's on this list, not consent agenda, is because of that.
Do we have a high enough level of confidence that we don't want to consider postponing it for 90 days or 120 days if that won't affect the USDA?
I'm confident they'll get the audit in here and that it will look better than the 21 audit did.
If you all have a high level of confidence.
I do. I think that if they're going to really have tailwinds with the QVC burn site, as well as the China Tower site, that if some potential massive employer wants to come in there and they have more incentive to get this audit in on time than this board will ever have. I mean, this is much bigger than a $500,000 USDA grant. So,
Do they really? I mean, tailwinds in the county are one thing. But this situation, and I know for a fact that commissioners have asked for information from their finance officer, their county manager. I don't know that the financial situation is ever getting better at Edgecombe County. It just does. I don't think there's any impetus there to get any better. They've gotten away with it for so long. People, QC fire was bad, the China Tower was bad, but I don't think there's any impetus for them to get their financials. Simply doing a bank recon every month. I just don't think there's a incentive there. But I hear what you say.
Eric or Jonah, would you like to provide some brief comments?
Yes, Treasurer Falwell. This is Jonna Sharp. I'm serving as the county's consultant and assisting them with their audit. I used to work in a large county, and it's interesting what some of these smaller counties, some of the challenges they face with getting talent and experience. And I have seen nothing but heart here in Edgecombe and them wanting to do the right thing. And they have been extremely open and eager to do the right thing. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And honestly, that's what I found here with Edgecombe, and being able to bring some new practices and best practices. I feel certain that this team will be able to maintain its work on a current basis. And really, when I came on board, I think they were so overwhelmed by the position that they were in. It was not really knowing how to get out of it. And not only have we completed 2 audits in the last 7 months, almost all of their accounts are current. We have submitted 50% of what the auditors want to review, and they'll be in here next week. And we are making every effort we can to have the audit done on October 31st. But it has not just been getting the audit done on time. It is putting in systems and building capacity so that their financial operations will be able to sustain this now and into the future.
Thank you. And Jonah, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but since you worked for a larger county, you have a choice whether you want to be helping Edgecombe County or not. That's a choice you've made.
Yes, sir. And it's a choice that I have learned very much from, and it's something I would, I think these smaller counties need a lot of help. And right now, that's where my heart and passion is helping them. And I'm here with Edgecombe until we get everything done on the manager's list to put it in a sound financial position.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Secretary Penny. Second?
Second.
Mr. Butler, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
All right, motion Penny, second Butler. Auditor Wood? Thank you. Secretary Marshall? Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell? Okay, 2 absent and the rest, yes.
Thank you all very much.
So the next unit on that needs to be discussed is the town of Godwin. This is a $736,000 revenue bond anticipation note. There is some updated information. They got the purchaser after the agenda went out. It is PNC with a rate of 5.20 for the construction period, and the revenue bond with the USDA is at a 2.125%. And the only other thing updated is for the PNC loan, there will be semi-annual interest payments. And this also corresponds with a other part of funding, which is the $1.6 million grant and $10,500 in local funds. And I will turn it over to Susan.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer. I'm speaking from attachment A, which is the FPIC memo that's dated September 14th. Looking at page 3 of that document, the town of Godwin reported 2 financial performance indicators of concern as a result of their 2021 audit. The first item was a fund balance available issue. The town had a general fund balance as of June 30th, 2021 of 70.63%, which was less than the average for their peers with similar size budgets. Also, the town's auditor reported material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the 2021 audit report. These 2 findings were related to budgetary over expenditures, again, in the general fund for public safety and transportation. The town issued a response to the LGC as required by administrative code. The town intends to review their budget and actual reports closely during the 2023 year, controlling expenditures for the fiscal year. They had expended funds of $47,000 roughly for engineering services that were related to the waterline extension project. With the issuance of the debt, the town is, and also controlling their expenditures as a result of the monitoring, they expect to restore the fund balance available at the general fund. And their response was satisfactory.
Yes.
Officer.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Jennifer. Do I hear a motion to accept staff's recommendation? And if we get into discussion and need to speak to the mayor, and staff. Welcome to the Local Government Commission's Treasurer Falwell. Will do so. Do I hear a motion to accept staff's recommendation?
Also move.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Penny. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Yes, Secretary Marshall.
Conversation. By the chart that was sent on page 22 of 42, it would indicate that they are only receiving 56% of their assessed taxation. So they have a high amount of uncollected taxes, and I think that's got to be an error in here. It didn't appear as one of the areas for concern, but the number certainly jumped out at me.
Great find. Folks from the town of Godwin, can you address Secretary Marshall's question about what it seems to be a low tax collection rate? Folks from Godwin, can you hear us?
Mayor Burnett, can you hear us, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Could you address the issue Secretary Marshall asked about what appears to be an extremely low tax collection rate, as stated in our material at 56%? Is that a typo or is that a reality?
I'm not sure. No, but our tax rate is too low. Is that what you're saying?
The tax collection rate.
Yeah, so what this number is telling us, this comes from the financial statements for 2021. This number looks at the amount that was reported as a revenue in the general fund and compares it to what they levied, or what they budgeted for, rather. So this is a revenue that is low in their financial statements. So just to clarify, this does not mean that the town actually collected 50% of their taxes. It means that they collected a little bit more than they budgeted for the year. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. So that is a concerning percentage, obviously.
But they changed.
Well, that's not.
Yeah.
You send the chart here, and then you go back to their response to page 22.
We got more tax than we had budget. More tax than we budgeted. So they've done something. What's that fund that we get in here? What's that?
Susan, some have said that what you said didn't make much sense to us as it should have. You want to try again?
Okay, so the
county gave us more than what we thought we were going to get.
So yes.
Yeah, that's what happened. The county gave us more than what we thought we were going to get, and that's why it's different.
So you were actually better off, because this metric and it highlights if it's less than 3%. So a negative number here would be an issue. So you really got 156% of what you should have gotten instead of, or what you expected or budgeted, as opposed to being low, you're high. That's what you're saying. Correct, Mayor?
I'm thinking
yes.
That's
correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because our ad valorem, we're not sure what would come in on that. So we budgeted what we thought for the prior year,
Right.
but we got ad valorem that came in and what we budgeted.
All right, we need to, if you speak, please identify yourself. I think we've gotten a little bit of clarity about what this number means. That number may need an asterisk beside it, or it may need to say 156%. But Secretary Marshall, are you satisfied?
I'm satisfied.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? And before we go to the vote, Godwin, I just want to call out that I don't see this very often, but you have no unfunded healthcare liability and no unfunded pension liability. So we don't see that very often on our sheet. So with that, the clerk will call the roll.
For the town of Godwin, motion Butler, second Penny. Auditor Wood?
Aye.
Secretary Marshall? Thank you. Butler Burns absent. Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. Hoffman absent. Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Follow?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hendersonville.
Hendersonville is coming to us for $18.2 million for several projects. One is constructing a new fire and emergency services facility, vehicles, including firefighting equipment and ladder truck, and parks and rec upgrades. They're coming with a 2.99 interest rate with Truist Bank, and I'll turn it over to Susan.
And then only FDIC because. Go ahead, Susan.
Okay, sorry. So I'm looking at page 4 of Exhibit A. And at the City of Hendersonville, financial performance indicators of concern, they've had 3 indicators of concern as a result of their 2021 audits. The first one, the city's general fund reported a fund balance available of 20%, which was less than the average for peers with similar sized budgets. They also reported their audit, submitted their audit late. It wasn't significantly late, and we are not concerned about this at this time, but we just didn't get it until December 15th, which is 6 weeks after the legal due date. But we are not, it just lights up on the FPIC report if it's after December 1.
Okay.
The town also had a material weakness or a significant deficiency as a result of their 2021 statements. So their response to us is attached. They Hendersonville expended $1.9 million in funds towards a land purchase that was reimbursed, that they were reimbursed for with bonds that they issued last year in November 2021. They also raised their property tax rate by 3 cents for the fiscal year 2022 budget, the year that just ended. With the reimbursement of these upfront costs and the tax increase, the city expects that their general fund balance available will be around 30% as of June 30th, 2020. And we haven't seen that audit yet, so we don't know, but that's what they're expecting. The late audit was due to some software changes during the year. And the material weakness that was reported was a result of that same software implementation. There were some two capital assets that weren't entered quite correctly into the software, and but that issue has been remedied and should not reoccur. So the city's response was satisfactory.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to accept staff's recommendation on Hendersonville?
Second.
Motion and a second by Secretary Marshall and Auditor Wood. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, thank you. Hendersonville. Secretary Penny? Thank you. Mr. Butler? Thank you. Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell? Thank you.
And Hendersonville folks, thank you for joining us. And just wanted to remind you that your OPEB liability on healthcare is about $5 million, and your combined pension unfunded liability is about $9 million. So keep that in mind if you find surpluses in the fast-growing area of Hendersonville. Thank you very much. With that, we'll try to go through the next three, and then I'll have just a small break in the action to give Chairman Tommy Everett just to give us some welcoming remarks, which I forgot to do earlier. So we'll now go to Kings Mountain.
Kings Mountain is coming for an installment contract for almost $7 million for a new substation and distribution lines. And it's for with the Truist Bank, and the interest rate is 3.12% for 15 years. And they have FPIC findings, and Susan will go over them.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm on page 5. The city of Kings Mountain had one performance indicator of concern in their 2021 audit. The city's transfers from their electric fund to their general fund exceeded the amount that was allowed by North Carolina General Statute 159B-39 by $2.8 million. Now, the city is not a member of the Eastern Power Agency and is not bound by this statute, but the LGC requires units that report electric fund transfers that exceed this statutory amount to report what they transferred and to explain what actions they are taking, if any, to remedy the practice, because it's not a best practice to support the two different funds that way. So the city response dated November 2nd is attached. Their response acknowledges that the transfer limits that are outlined in the statute are best practice, and details when they use electric fund transfers to support their general fund. They support the general fund expenditures that will add value and improve the quality of life in their community. The transfers are a longstanding practice by the town. They do have a goal of reducing them over time. The city's response was satisfactory. And,
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. And I think we have the finance director of Kings Mountain on the phone, Chris Costner, if we should need him. Do I hear a motion to accept staff's recommendation with one abstention? We still have a quorum to accept the Kings Mountain application.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Ms. Harvey.
Thank you. Motion second being made. Any further discussion?
Yes,
Yes.
some questions.
Alter Wood.
So if the LGC, and we've talked about this for years, that taking money out of your electric fund to fund things that the general fund should be funding is not a great way to practice. I want to understand why y'all find this response satisfactory. It's not a best practice. It's one the LGC frowns on. So why is this a satisfactory response? Because it sounds like they just plan on keep on doing it.
I hear you, Auditor Wood, and I understand. I mean, I would defer to the town as far as what their their response that's on page 38 and 39 of the exhibit makes it clear that they're intending on continuing this, but that they are looking towards gradually becoming less independent, less dependent on the electric fund.
Those statements are contradictory one to the other.
They are.
And I'm fine. I'm just going to say I will not support this, given their blatant disregard for the council, the local government commission, and their best practices and the recommendations. So, thank you.
Okay.
I've got a question.
Secretary Penny.
Well, you know, I ask the same question every time I hear it. And that is the same question. Are there people does the utility service people who are not in the city limits and not vote for the city council?
I think that is a question that I'll need to ask the finance director of the town, of the city, to answer.
Mr. Costner, you have the floor to answer Revenue Secretary Penny's question.
Yes, sir. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have inside-outside rates, so we're not servicing anybody that's not in the town limits.
And are there people inside the town of Kings Mountain who are not serviced by the city's utility?
Yes, sir. To my knowledge, there are customers who are serviced by Duke, and there are customers that are serviced by Rutherford Electric, and I think that goes back years and years and years based on territorial rights.
So in essence, there are people in Kings Mountain who are not paying into the utilities fund.
That would be correct.
And they do not pay this, in essence, tax. You don't need to ask, that was a return.
Okay. Any other questions? We have a motion and a second on the floor, please.
Can I guess I need one more question.
Yes, Secretary Penny.
Explain to me why this is necessary.
Mr. Costner, why is this necessary?
I got to get around my objection. Right now, it appears to me that certain people are paying the burden and certain people are not paying the burden. I got to get around that objection. Give me a reason to vote for that.
The necessity of the project is basically to add additional capacity to the system so that we can service anticipated growth in the future. That's why we're looking to add the additional substation to distribute load. Again, I'm not the operational utility director. That position is vacant at the moment, and have an interim. But it was explained essentially that our existing substations are nearing capacity, and this is just a natural progression to ensure that we're able to continue to service any additional needs, and so that we can shift load from station to station, so that we have reliable service with regards to the electric component. Same thing with the gas component. It's just to ensure reliability of the system, and that's really the gas portion of the project. So that kind of addresses the necessity of the projects.
Will the rates be impacted by any of this?
No, the rates are being impacted heavily right now because of our increased purchase power cost. That's kind of an industry-wide issue right now. But the debt service in a vacuum, no, we weren't anticipating any significant rate changes to service the debt as a result of this.
Where did Harvey go? She's still here.
Ms. Harvey, are you still with us?
here.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor, barely. We have one abstention, and the clerk will call the roll to approve the staff's recommendation.
All right, Kings Mountain motion, Marshall, second Harvey. Just a minute. Okay, Auditor Wood? Thank you. Secretary Penny? Yes, sir. Mr. Butler? No, thank you. Mr. Philbeck has recused himself. Treasurer? Secretary Penny? No. So that's 3 yes, 3 no. Motion is not carried. Motion fails, excuse me. Say that way. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Mr. Costner, this is Treasurer Falwell. The motion failed regarding your application. 3-3.
What will it take for them? I mean, if they need more power and our problem is moving money from one fund to another to do other things, how can they achieve a goal of getting power stations that I don't think any of those disputing that they don't need?
Sure. Mr. Costner, can you commit to working with the LGC staff and LGC members regarding some of the concerns that they had that have led to this vote between now and the next meeting?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And the vote's already taken place. And would you also commit to any financing arrangements that were embedded in this application to work with whoever those arrangements were with in an effort to possibly get those extended until the next meeting?
Yes, sir, we will.
Okay.
Like I said, we were due to close on Tuesday. So.
Okay. Wait just a minute.
Stand by.
What does the impact of this vote do to their plan? Other than I know they can't do it, but I mean, let's assume that they can work it out.
Next meeting.
Is it going to be a different? Is it going to be a different package there? Is something going to be substantially so substantially different?
Mr. Costner, Susan, Jennifer, what Secretary Penny asked, in the next 10 days, what can be done to adjust this application that could lead to an affirmative vote?
This is Jennifer Wimmer. The financing, if Truist does not agree to the extension, the possibility of the interest rate increasing on this transaction is there.
That's a different question.
Well, but I think that's the question I was asking.
But what could be done in the application itself, which is in front of us with the financing package, that would bring the members who vote against this more comfort to vote yes?
I'll defer to Susan on that.
Yeah, Mr. Treasurer, what I was going to suggest is that we do the LGC fiscal staff, including Secretary Evanson, meet with remotely with the town or the city to see to develop a plan about how they can a fiscal plan about and a commitment from the town about what they will begin to do over the next period of time to get the electric fund rates and the general fund tax rates where they need to be to begin to make that switch the way that they need to in a manner that's appropriate. I don't know if that's a 10-day process or not. I don't see that being done well in 10 days.
All right, well, yes, Cindy.
But we could help with that. We could help them with that.
Cindy.
I was just going to try to raise a point of order. This is Cindy Aiken, or point of statutory interpretation. So when the commission denies an application, the proceedings under Article 8, the IP installment purchase contract are an end. So I don't recall this happening since I've been in this position. So as to what to do, I'm going to suggest they perhaps need to file a new application.
It would be better if we tabled this to the next meeting.
Well, we've already voted.
Somebody who voted in-
But
I think I have the right to reconsider and table.
yeah, that's probably right. My Robert's rules was too heavy to bring.
Second.
All right, hold on. We're moving to reconsider at a later meeting.
I would say I think it's the motion to
Yeah.
reconsider.
Sure it is.
And I'm motioning to reconsider to table, and now table.
All right. Did I hear a second? Oh, did the chair hear a second? All in favor?
The motion is to reconsider the earlier vote, to table it to another meeting. That's the motion, and a second that's on the table.
However, same thing comes back.
Whoever's back in the office, maybe somebody grab the Robert's rules, but I'm sure that sounds good. That's the one thing. Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. Yeah. All right.
But again, if it comes back the same, our vote will be the same. So there needs to be some intent. to
Something
stop this.
different,
What?
something different in the application.
Okay, motion second on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Motion to reconsider the vote and to table this matter. Penny Wood. Are you tabling it to the next meeting, or, which is very soon? Okay. Thank you, Debbie. All right. Secretary Marshall. Okay.
Let me rephrase. We'll table it to the next meeting unless staff and the applicant determine that it needs to go to it.
Okay.
Staff and. All right. Go ahead.
The second was Wood. Okay. Unless staff and applicant need more time. All right, back to this. All right, the Wood made the second. Marshall said aye. Penny made the motion. Burns is that. Mr. Butler. Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. And Treasurer.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Kings Mountain, and thank you, staff. Well, next.
May I just say, normally I don't vote against that smacks to me. Put the burden, when one side of town is paying into the general fund and the other side of town isn't asked to make an equal contribution into the general fund, that just is fundamentally unfair.
Noted. Well put. Okay.
Thank you, Secretary Penny. I was going to say, I was looking at the statute before this vote, but again, the Eastern Power Agency has such a specific rule, and then there's really, it's nebulous.
And my issue isn't,
Yeah.
because they weren't given a constraint. So I understand why they made their decision. But the fundamental fairness issue is still
no argument.
an issue.
Thank you.
And I would add to Secretary Penny's remarks that our staff needs to think through those lenses on anything that would ever come before us in any way, shape, or form.
I asked the same question.
All right, we'll go to Southeast Regional Airport in Spring Lake, which shouldn't take very long, then Chairman.
Southeast Regional Airport Authority has come with a loan increase for their state revolving loan. The increase is $151,483. The bids came back in after the original loan was given to them by DEQ. And so now the project total and loan amount is $731,341, term of 20 years to the state of North Carolina revolving fund. Susan will go over the FPICs.
So the what is the what again? Seven, what did you just say?
The new loan amount is
And
$731,579,000.
it was? I thought I heard 150,000.
That's
So
the
it's
loan
gone-
increase.
Okay, so it's gone 30%. All right, thank you. Susan, you have anything substantive to add to this?
Excuse me?
Do you have anything substantive to add to what Jennifer's already said?
No. About Southeast?
Yes.
No, I did, they have 3 FPICs. One was that their financial statements that were due October 31st were not submitted to the LGC until February. They also had statutory violations and material weaknesses in the 2021 report. They did file a response with us on September 1. The report was late because the CPA experienced personnel issues during the year. That was a common thing in 2021. The statutory violation that was reported as the second FPIC was related to the late audit report filing. Most concerning, the auditor reported a material weakness. The authority incurred capital outlay expenditures that exceeded $883,000 of budgeted amounts that were approved by the governing board. Since then, the authority has begun reviewing all capital related expenditures and making the required budget amendments. Their response was satisfactory.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion, a second? Do I hear a motion or a second?
So moved.
That was a lot of stuff that Susan brought up. Motion seconds on the floor. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, call the roll.
Okay, Southeast Regional Airport, Penny Philbeck. Auditor Wood. Shelley. Thank you. Secretary Marshall. Thank you. Mr. Butler. Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer.
Given the depth and breadth of some of the things that Susan brought up, I'm going to vote no.
No. Okay, 7-1. Motion passes.
Now we're on the Spring Lake.
6-1. Excuse me, 6-1. Sorry, 6-1.
This is Jennifer Wimmer. To speak about the Spring Lake application, I'm turning it over to Sharon.
Thank you, Jennifer. This is Sharon Edmondson. This Spring Lake item is one that we've talked about several times with the commission. This is the fire station loan that they obtained from the South River EMC approximately 2 years ago and failed to bring it before the LGC for approval. The commission directed staff to negotiate the best terms possible with South River. And what I could not convince them to do, the treasurer was able to convince them to do, and they moved us to a 20-year amortization on that loan. The first 2 years were deferred, so the first payment is now due October 1st, 2022. with a 0% interest and an administrative fee, which is the same as it was in the original loan. So we have the first payment due coming up. It is in the budget at that amount. And so we should be good going forward.
Do I hear a motion or a second to approve the actual fire station treasure loan finally? Yes, sir. Let me get a motion in a second.
No, that's not a motion, it's a question.
Okay. Let me get a motion in a second, then we'll go to discussion.
I want to answer the question before I make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
In this discussion with South River, did it elevate to the level of the State Association of Co-ops about making loans without being cleared or brought to the attention of local government?
It did.
It did.
Yes.
I move that we make it approved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
Point of inquiry.
Yes.
What did we approve a meeting or two ago? Didn't we approve something?
What did we approve a meeting or two ago about spring lake?
Not this loan. It was, we talked it over quite a bit, but we didn't approve anything.
Okay.
I think you gave me authority, direction, or guidance, or encouragement to go and try to talk to the state agency to try to get this resolved. The Spring Lake's running through your mind is a damn good reason for it. So,
Yesterday.
yeah. We have a motion second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Okay, and to allay any confusion, you are voting on this as the LGC and not as the other issue was approving it as the governing board for financial. Okay. So now you're wearing your LGC hat. Okay. Spring Lake Fire Station loan, Butler Wood, Audit, Secretary Marshall. Thank you. Secretary Penny.
Assuming I don't have a conflict. It looks like a conflict, but.
Okay. Burns absent. Mr. Butler. Oh, you made the motion. Excuse me. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
And Treasurer Falwell. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Before we go off Spring Lake, I just want to say to this LGC board and LGC staff, I've said publicly, there's no one in the state of North Carolina who wishes that they were dealing with the issues of Spring Lake, North Carolina. But I think with the announcement yesterday by U.S. Attorney Easley, when people's confidence in government is at an all-time low, maybe this is a small beacon of optimism about how the state treasurer's office and the local government commission can work with the state auditor's office and a U.S. attorney easily to not only bring an indictment against this embezzlement, but also an arraignment and a conviction all in the same morning, the last two in the same morning. So I just want to thank all of you for your efforts regarding this. None of us wish we had ever heard of this situation. This is the second time in a decade this community has been through this financial vortex. They deserve better. The city is in the process of hiring a city manager, and there are only two camps here. Either you want to drown Spring Lake or you want to save Spring Lake. There's no in between here. And we hope and will be in consultation with them and hoping they make the right decision to save Spring Lake, not drown Spring Lake. So I just want to publicly thank the state auditor, our staff, as well as U.S. Attorney Easley, who I spoke to yesterday, who is now working with our felony forfeiture department to make sure that the judge's order regarding this guilty plea G-hauls with our felony forfeiture statute so that this person who embezzled this money will be losing some of her pension. So I just want to publicly thank everybody for your efforts there. So with that, we're going to take a little break before we go to the consent agenda, and we got some pretty heavy items. So Chairman Everett, we will give you an opportunity just to welcome everyone, and I apologize ahead of time for not doing that. If you want to come to the podium, identify yourself. Yes. He told me I had a facial radio, so I think
Ma'am,
is it okay if you're not on video?
it doesn't bother me a bit. I do welcome you, each and every one. My grandfather used to tell me that you didn't need to judge a person until you had walked in their shoes. I'm listening to what you're dealing with, and I find that making sausage is not always pretty. And you all are doing the same kind of work that we do every day in Terrell County. It's a triage. On behalf of Commissioner Jordan Davis and our entire commission, we welcome you to Terrell County. What you see is just a very small glimpse of the beauty of this county. And I hope that during the course of your visit, that you will explore Terrell County. You might see an eagle, you might see an alligator, you could see a family of bear. Secretary Marshall, I would tell you that before this was a 4-H center, it was a Boy Scout campground. And I survived a survival hike in this place, and it was full of briars, and it's very dear to me as well. Having said those things, I'm going to do what every good chairman would do and turn it over to my county manager for a formal welcome. So please bear with me.
Well, thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm David Clegg. I'm the county manager and county attorney of Terrell County, and have worked with everyone in this room for decades. And I think the first one would have been Paul Butler. I served on the Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer Authority with him. Of course, the Secretary of State for years, and Sharon for years. You, Treasurer Falwell, State Auditor Woods and I went through a trial by fire during a horrifically bad economic period of time when I was deputy chairman of the Employment Security Commission, and we are both still here. So we did okay. And of course, Secretary Penny, who I met in 1993 when I joined the Hunt administration, and he talked to me as state personnel director. So it's great to be here. It has been a 9-year adventure for me to serve as county manager and county attorney of Terrell County. When I left state government at the end of the Purdue administration, I really thought I had retired. But immediately after my retirement, Terrell County, with the leadership that you see in this room, decided they were going to become the 100th county to adopt the county manager form of government. And to have the opportunity, among other things, to say I'm the last person who could say they were the first county manager of any county in North Carolina, to come to Terrell with a population of 3,022 people, with a gross valuation of $450 million, with a plethora of beauty, of incredible agriculture, remarkably technologically sophisticated forestry, and the most vibrant fishing community in the state, to help create a unit of government that can address those issues of major agribusiness with what must happen in Terrell County is a blooming of agritourism and of ecotourism, because places like Terrell County need to exist on this planet because of the sensitive and delicate Pocosin nature of Terrell County. The world that we know it can breathe and survive and grow seafood and grow incredible amounts of bounty that keep us alive. And to do that in a world where I, just like you, And of course, everyone in the room knows I live in Raleigh. I'm also the chairman of the City of Raleigh Arts Commission and a few other things, but I see it from both sides too. I have seen days on the Arts Commission when we bought art for the City of Raleigh that was half the actual operating budget of this county. And so when you see that dichotomy, when you get on Highway 64 and you come to the realization, when you get out of Tarboro, the world changed. And it does, but that's not necessarily bad, because what it changes into is a nature-filled, beautiful place that is a canvas of nothing but opportunity. And that's why we're so thrilled that you're here, to have horsepower like this in this room on this day when it's really pretty and the wind's not blowing, to show you how incredible this place is and to understand the commitment that was made to this county over a period of years from the United States government and the state of North Carolina, when over 200,000 acres of this county was taken for various reasons. There was a promise made to help monetize Terrell County. That promise has not been completely realized. There are opportunities every day for that to occur. But the most important thing is that the folks in Terrell County are the most guileless, hardworking, entrepreneurial people you will ever meet. They are forging for themselves a life and a place and are preserving this place that is so important for our state. And thank you for celebrating it along with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg. We're glad to be here, and any of those who are joining us through the internet or otherwise, the 4-H camp here is open for business. It's potentially open for corporate retreat business. They will treat you with radical hospitality here, both by opening their doors, their minds, and their hearts to try to accommodate anyone who may like to be here. One further thing before we go to the consent agenda is that we have a birthday boy here today, and we are going to sing him happy birthday, two of them. Oh, a birthday boy and a birthday girl. When I was thinking that maybe I was thinking about Earth, Wind, and Fire as I was coming down here, their famous song, the 21st of September. This is the 22nd of September, so it doesn't quite apply, but I think we have the earth, wind, and the fire in here today. So with that.
But nobody who can hit those notes.
Nobody can hit those notes. So the best singer I know in this room is my wife, so I'm going to ask her to lead us in singing Happy Birthday to Jennifer and Sam.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Jennifer Sam. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, we'll now go through our consent agenda, and then we'll take a small break after the consent agenda to go over the items that, without objection, we pulled, which were Guilford County, Sunset Beach, and Project Grace in New Hanover. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah. Consent agenda?
I move to accept the consent agenda minus 3 items you named.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion regarding the consent agenda? Just very briefly, I won't go over all these names, but I just always like to point out for Mecklenburg County, which is not on here, or the city of Charlotte, which is not on here. I get it. City of Charlotte has a $345 million overfunded healthcare liability, but $180 million in the bank. So that's nearly 50% funded. Wake County has about the same liability with no money in the bank because they're unfunded liability. So making the clerk doing a lot better. We have a motion second on the floor. Any further discussion regarding our consent agenda?
Only comment is that there appears to be a lot of affordable housing taken on, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Mr.
Hearing
Treasurer, may I make one comment? On the original agenda, the town of Wake Forest had indicated a 4-cent increase, and it's actually 3 cents. So we just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that everybody had that updated information.
Okay. All right. Motion and second on the floor. Hearing no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Butler has stepped out of the room, but we still have a quorum. Sorry, it was Wood and Penny? Okay. Oh, I got that already. Okay, so we need 5 to vote. All right, Wood, Penny. Thank you. Secretary Marshall? Thank you. Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell? Thank you. That's 6.
Consent agenda is approved, and we'll now take a break and meet in 8 minutes at 3 o'clock. We're hereby in recess.
For our members who are joining us virtually, you are still open and connected to all the meeting. It's just that our local room is muted. So for our virtual members who are connected, you are still open and can be heard by all participants. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've resumed broadcast of our LGC meeting. Audio and video are back on in the room, and we're resuming the meeting.
Members, we're back in session for the Local Government Commission to go over 3 items that were removed from the consent agenda. We'll start with what I think is the easiest one first. Guilford County School System item. Not only is this a tremendous amount of money, we have approved a school bond for Guilford County sometime, I guess, over the last couple of years for $300 million, if my memory's right, and they end up spending almost twice that amount of money. Whether it's a urban district or rural district, I'm concerned about getting out too far out over their skis as far as debt. The amount of debt that's on this application will nearly exceed the state general obligation debt 2 years from now. This one application.
What? Will exceed the state?
General obligation debt 2 years from now.
Can you afford this?
Well, I will tell you, and the staff will tell me what I cannot tell you, that if you, in the public record, there's a lot of debate about controversy regarding electioneering for bond referenda. And forgive me, my mother is from Guilford County, as is my father. Sometimes I get City of Greensboro applications and the County of Guilford somewhat confused. This particular bond referendum has or has not been approved by the voter.
It has.
This one has. Okay. The sales tax increase to pay for the bond referendum has or has not been approved by the voters. I thought there was a bond there was a sales tax. There was a sales tax increase on the ballot in the primary that did not pass. Was that this one or the City of Greensboro?
Tony Blaylock is on the line to answer that, and he's part of our staff.
Okay. So one of these situations, maybe I'm talking about situations not even before us, which I apologize in advance for doing that. But I thought one of these situations, we were approving something that the sales tax to pay the juice was denied by the voters. So this application that's before us has been approved by the voters. Okay. They're waiting on us.
Yes.
Okay. So
How about the money, how about the revenue to pay for it?
the revenue to pay for
I
it.
said, how about the money? Ability.
Sorry.
So what are they going to pay for this with?
Yes.
This is Cindy Aiken. I'd suggest that if Tony Blaylock on our staff is available, he's the analyst that handles geobonds, and he could be unmuted. Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
Tony, Debbie asked you to unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Mr. Treasurer, you are correct. There was a companion sales tax vote which was defeated. The financial model that has been presented for this particular item will pay debt service from property tax rather than sales tax. The county has put together that model, which is also dependent on a revaluation that was just concluded. The the property tax rate after revaluation did not change. Let me pull it up. It's 73. Give me just a minute. I think it's 73.05 cents. After revaluation, the same as it was before revaluation, and the debt model includes $50 million per year for the debt service and capital component for these bonds. And you're correct, there was a $300 million referendum approved a couple of years ago, and we sold the first $120 million bonds of that referendum earlier this year.
Okay. Who's joining us from the county?
Manager, the finance director, the budget and management director, the debt director, the county attorney.
Mr. Treasurer, may I ask a question?
Yes, Mr. Philbeck, we're going to let Alter Wood start with her question, and we're going to come straight to yours. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Alter Wood.
Well, Mr. Philbeck, may be the same question, but I just wanted to get a clarification on what I heard. The ask is $1.7 billion. It passed on a bond referendum, but the money to pay for it was designated as a sales tax. That did not pass on the ballot. So now they're going to put an increase on property taxes, and then they don't really know because there's going to be a revaluation of property. What did I hear about a revaluation?
Yes.
Revaluation has been done.
So why would we be considering this if we don't have all the numbers?
The revaluation is completed.
Unless you're telling me that
The revaluation,
it'll make it anyway, even if they don't revalue.
revaluation has been completed and the tax rate stayed the same after revaluation. So the tax increase is in effect for the current fiscal year 23.
So, Madam Auditor, my question was just related. What would the statutory revenue neutral rate have been?
I'll refer that to the financial advisor. I believe it was about 60 cents, but I don't remember exactly.
So it's the equivalent of a 13-cent property tax rate increase. That was my question, Madam Auditor.
Thank you, Mr. Philbeck, Madam Auditor. Mr. Halford, or if the FAA happens to be on the line, is the calculation, back of the envelope calculation that Mr. Philbeck just made accurate in your opinion?
So thank you, Mr. Treasurer, and members of the commission. It's Michael Halford, the county manager. Our revenue neutral rate was 59.54 cents. So, and then at 73 cents, there was a, 13-ish or so cents a difference there. So the Board of Commissioners chose to keep the current tax rate, use some of the additional revenue to generate in order to make this bond program work. And so that's by allocating the additional $50 million a year that Tony mentioned, that in addition to existing revenues, the existing kind of fall off of our current debt allows us to build up enough funds to make this whole program work. And then at the end of it, actually convert over to more of a pay-as-you-go funding model for the schools to relieve that pressure. The 0.25% sales tax, you are right, was also being considered. We did not consider that in the debt modeling because that wasn't just like having to approve the current tax rate, wasn't approved. We hadn't had approval by the budget, by the voters at the time we were doing this. So that was outside of it. Our commissioners did say, had that approved, the voters approved that, then they would have been able to perhaps adjust that 73 cents down, but that did not pass. The Board of Commissioners kept the tax rate at its current rate, and that has provided additional recurring revenue to use to pay this debt and make the model work. And I will say also, with pretty conservative estimates on sales tax growth and property tax growth going out of about 2% a year, which is considerably less than what we've been doing. Also wanted to acknowledge our vice chairperson of the board, Vice Chairwoman Carlina Foster's on the line, as well as along with a representative from our school system.
Thank you, Mr. Manager and Vice Chair. Thank you for joining us. This is Treasurer Falwell. Just can you answer these as quickly as you can? The controversy or complaints or filings regarding the electioneering that went into getting the bond referendum voter approved, are they still an open issue?
No.
Okay. Secondly, if I'm say you're right or you're wrong, the bonds passed 60-40 and the sales tax increase to pay for the bonds failed 60-40.
I do not remember the sales tax, but I think that's about right. Only clarification would be is we didn't include that in our model. That would have been additional revenue that we could have used to reduce the tax rate, but we were not, although it was suggested we would use that, at that time we were not counting on the model.
Third question, has your property tax exemption for low income people, the threshold, has it gone up at all?
Need to check. I believe it's the state, whatever the current threshold is, yes. So,
Okay.
so it changes with the state.
So someone like myself has the opinion that as much as we can to kind of give people at least a fighting chance of staying in their homes, with one of the biggest detriments of that is rising property taxes, then this would, since that exemption has not gone up, this, and the value of the house has gone up, even though that'd be contrary to what I think should be happening, right?
Well, what we did do is we took a look and we actually were surprised at the number of people that were taking advantage of the existing exemptions. So we did a pretty big public communications, revamped our tax website so that people who are eligible for that and unable to access it, we improved the education, and so we could see an increase in the usage of that. But you are right, that exemption stayed the same. We did recognize that it doesn't seem to be being used as greatly as we would have expected. So we built out a communication program to make sure residents were aware of what was available for them.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question, and I'll open up and see any other. Have any concern? Are most of these projects that you're going to spend this money on, because this 1.7 billion could actually end up coming in at well over $2 billion easily, without even thinking twice. Is this a lot of repair and renovation or replacement?
So we've got three, and Angie Henry, a senior assistant to the superintendent's on the line, so she can jump in and correct me, but it's 3 new construction schools, I believe 17 or 18 rebuild, 13 or so full renovations, and then about another $360 million of safety, technology, other systems updates across the entire system.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for answering those questions. And I guess I do have one last one. What are the lottery proceeds you get for public school construction? If you don't know this off the top of your head, I understand, but if you do, I'd like to hear the answer. And when that money comes to you, is it handcuffed or steered toward only replacement and not renovation?
It's somewhere just over $5 million, I believe. We've allocated part of that to the school system capital needs on the annual basis, and then part of that is built into the debt model. About 4.7 million of that is in the current debt model. But that, when that was approved many years ago, that was, the county was moving into the 2008 bonds at the time, I believe, and had talked about helping that to get those 2008 off, and some of the laws changed, but that has been committed to a combination of replacement renovation facilities, in addition to our level at the time before the tax was.
And is your school enrollment increasing or decreasing, and by a lot or a little?
Yeah, the total population of the county is, I believe, increasing. Angie can jump in as well. The base population in our non-charter schools system is about 70,000 students or so, 68, 69. Overall in the county, I believe it's been going up. That has dropped, obviously, as some children move into charter schools for the base system.
Right. Okay. I have no further questions. Committee members.
We were not clear when he gave the explanation
Is
about
the
the
enrollment
school-age
going
population.
up or down?
Angie, are you on?
Public school system.
So charter schools are public schools. So total kids are going up in our base system, which I think is what you're asking, the Guilford County schools. It's about 68,000 or so, 70. That has dropped as kids have gone to charter schools, but the overall population of students is still increasing.
And what has been the increase in your private schools, church schools, all these schools that take kids out of the public school system? Is that growing in Guilford County?
I'm sorry, Michael, this is Angie Henry. I'm the senior advisor to the superintendent here in Guilford County. And I can help answer questions about our enrollment. So we have seen some growth in our charter school, kind of a steady growth every year. It has not mirrored the decrease that we've seen in our enrollment over that same period of time. So it's not students leaving Guilford County schools to attend charter schools. We have seen some growth in our private school, but we feel like a lot of our growth is in homeschooling based on numbers that we've seen, and just a reduction in the school age population here in Guilford County.
Secretary Marshall.
How long is this $1.7 million project going to take? What is your anticipation?
How long will the 1.7 billion take to spend it out, if approved?
So Michael, do you want me to answer that? Our intent as a school district is to have that done in the 7-year time frame. We have already selected our project managers, our construction project managers. They're ready to go as soon as this process is complete. We've identified the projects. We've used our $300 million projects to create not prototypes exactly, but kind of a kit of parts of what we want in each school. So that'll be provided to each design team so that they already know the expectation of what's to be included in each school and kind of the constraints or guardrails that we want each school designed to live within. Also, since as Mr. Halford mentioned, so many of these projects are replacement projects or renovation projects, there's not going to be time spent having to look for property or new sites for schools. So we can start right away. As soon as design is done, we can start construction.
Thank you. This is Treasurer Falwell again. Some folks are doing some statistical work that I'll ultimately share, but even in places like Wake and Mecklenburg County, I think that people are going to be shocked of how many school-aged children per 10,000 people who are moving into those areas. I think you're going to be stunned of how low the number is actually. And I would just say to Guilford County, because I was on the school board in Wake, Forsyth County for 8 years. You go out Ronaldo Road past Wake Forest, you see a beautiful building called Old Town Elementary School, and it was on the slate to be torn down. And so I asked the question when I was on the school board in the early 90s, does it have good bones? And they said, well, the torso has good bones, which is that gorgeous, beautiful auditorium that you see when you drive past that school. And I said, why don't we just put new legs and arms on it? And that's exactly what they did at half the cost of what they originally were planning to do. It's a fantastic looking school. And I would just hope that Guilford County is not just thinking inside the box, but thinking outside the box and figuring out both ways to use the box because of declining enrollment and how to keep some of these buildings that may have good bones in place and do it more efficiently. So any other questions or discussion among the local government commission members?
Treasurer, if I can just follow up one more time with the gentleman, how much would the increase have been by percentage in tax revenue after reval at the revenue neutral rate?
20%.
I believe our rate was it probably would have been between 2 to 3% when you look back on the revenue neutral calculation.
So you're saying you would have had between 2 and 3% increase in revenue at the 59 point whatever.
I believe that's correct, because that would have been about the standard 3-ish or so % increase in values prior to, given the revenue neutral calculation. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yes, welcome.
Any further questions or debate?
Mr. Chairman, would it be beneficial for us to see what the enrollment trends have been in the last 5 years and what we project they're going to be, and look at the number of private schools that were 5 years ago, charter schools, religious schools, any school that takes a kid out of the public sector school system, see how many private schools have grown in the last 5 years, and what is the projection for private schools in the next 5 to 10 years, and the impact that would have on the enrollment in the public system.
Mr. Butler, this is Treasurer Falwell. I think that would be very valuable information. And I think the commission members already know that two of the 21 hats that I wear is a member of the State Board of Education, as well as the State Community College Board. The community college system the enrollment's down dramatically. And that's where I'm getting some of this intuition / facts is my position on the State Board of Education. I would love to see those numbers, and unfortunately, those can't be provided in the context of this meeting unless it was the desire of the board to table this to a further meeting or vote it up or vote it down, depending on that. If there's enough collective interest on this board to actually see what those numbers are.
What's the time constraints that we have here? Our decision to delay today, what time on the transaction?
Mr. Halford, this is Treasurer Falwell. To try to interpret what Member Butler and Secretary Perry just said, and the person who's on the call from the school system, I don't suspect it would take very long to provide the commission with the numbers to answer Mr. Butler's question about school enrollment. So the last 5 years.
I keep forgetting what meeting.
And then, given the answer to that question, going back to Secretary Penny's question, is there anything that would change in the financial structure of this transaction in the next 10 days if it were put back on the agenda? Jennifer?
To answer your question, there is no sale date for any of this to be sold, so no.
There's nothing in the other.
Hi, this is Angie Henry from Guilford County Schools again. I just want to make the statement that the request was made to build or rebuild schools that are in failing condition. This request was not made because we're anticipating significant student growth in the county. We were very careful to do a facilities condition assessment in 2017 and 2018 that scored most of our buildings, the large majority of our buildings, as poor or unacceptable. And so to address that, because it has been many years since we've had the dollars in the county to be able to do even deferred maintenance, which the condition assessment showed more than $1 billion or more than $2 billion in need. when we looked at the condition of our schools. So we can certainly get you the 5-year trend data on enrollment. And I can tell you that since pre-pandemic to this year, where we're at, and this year we're above where we were last year. We're tracking above last year's enrollment, but where we're at is about 4.5% less than where we were pre-pandemic. We are certainly working on finding those students and bringing them back where we can, or looking for those students. But again, these facilities and this request was based on the current condition of many of our schools that are full with students and the condition that they were in.
Guilford County, given the fact that I've raised concerns about this and Mr. Butler, and there's been some other questions, would you have any, we heard your answer. Would you have any particular heartburn, since we're going to be convening here in another 10 days, to getting the commission members the information that they've requested, and understanding that some of the information that we may be looking for may not change what you just said in your answer? Just we'll incorporate all that. Since you don't have anything in the oven, there is not a sell date that's pending on this transaction. To bring this, at least me, and maybe some other commission members, more level of comfort, do you have any problem with us considering this in the LGC meeting that's coming up in 10 days?
So Michael Halford again. I mean, obviously we like it approved because we have got a joint facilities commission that works with the Board of Education and the Board of Commissioners to get these things moving, keep the planning going, keep it moving. If it's the will of the commission, obviously that's what we'll do. Just if I could provide just a little context, it is a big bond issue. You are right, and as Ms. Henry reported, this is really to fix existing schools that are having critical issues right now. There's 126 schools in the county. This is obviously a subset of those, but we will touch all of those with safety, security, other system upgrades. Just to put 1.7 is a big amount in context. Since about the mid-90s, Guilford has issued about 1.3 billion total in school bonds. We kind of we're at a pay-as-you-go thing before, and then are in a position where we need some debt to address these things. Wake is about 4.3 billion over that period, and Mecklenburg is over 3 billion. So we are well behind in investing in those schools, as Ms. Henry said, that are existing now. But we will be happy to bring it back if that's, obviously we want you all to be good with the decision. Know you have a lot of things to consider. Appreciate your work keeping the state's credit rating as high as it is. But I just offer that to you for your consideration, but we'll do what the commission, as a commission, pleases.
Thank you for that explanation, and I think that was heartfelt. I had to catch my breath when you said that there not been but 1.3 billion of stuff done since the mid-90s. I was sitting on the County School, early 90s, yeah. So, my dates are all wrong here because Alter Wood tried to convince us earlier that she was a 4-H'er here 20 years ago. So since that time, 3 hours ago, my calendars are off. And we always believe what she tells us, but we didn't believe that. So I would be more comfortable with that. I appreciate the latitude of the Guilford County to do this. And I will entertain a motion that we.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Treasurer, sorry, can I clarify the request that you have of Guilford County? Is it the student population trends in the Guilford County schools over the last 5 years?
Right.
And projected enrollment for the next 5 years. The number of private school, any type of school that takes a kid out of the public school system for the last 5 years. and what you project the private schools will take out of the enrollment for the upcoming 5 years.
And this is State Treasurer Falwell. I wouldn't let what those numbers look like deter you. I would, because we understand that something hasn't occurred since the early 90s, and that there is a need for repair and renovation regardless of how many students are there. We're got enough common sense, we'll apply all that. And you've heard what Mr. Butler said, and then if any other board members has anything else they would like to put into that query, that we'll provide that to you by the middle of next week. If any other board members have any other questions that need to be answered.
Will do. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We need a motion, Cindy. Can I make a motion? Or somebody else can? Mr. Butler, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. The table, yeah.
Second?
Are you seconding it or?
Either one. I will if no one else does. Second? I'll second.
Okay.
Second, any further discussion? And I would add Mr. Halford's Treasurer Falwell to, anyway, Jennifer will get us the data. We have motion second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. We're motion to table this matter can be taken up at the next meeting and pending the receipt of the various items of data from the county. That was Butler and Falwell. Auditor Wood?
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall? Thank you. Secretary Penny?
Aye.
Thank you. Let's see, and Ms. Harvey is recusing from this matter. Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Now we're on to Sunset Beach. Members, you received some information regarding some issues regarding Sunset Beach. You've received emails. Staff has had some conversations about things that are going on at Sunset Beach. None of which is, at this point, I would say, highly documented. But the reason I wanted this pulled off is that when, the mayor of the town calls me and says that, everything needs to be, measured 5 times and cut once regarding transactions at Sunset Beach, I take that seriously when a mayor does that. So, staff, do you have anything to add?
Jennifer, you want to talk about the package?
Sure. The project itself is the acquisition of a land piece of property on the island, and they were going to use it as a park. So limited development, but parkland.
Okay. So let me just start with a few questions. Is anybody here on the call from Sunset Beach?
To Anglin, the town administrator, and I believe we have others joining us from Sunset Beach Town Hall.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us today. This piece of property that we're talking about, is it buildable?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now? Hi,
Yes.
I'm Liz Anglin. I'm the town administrator. Yes, this is buildable property.
Okay. I know that you've been through the appraisal process. I've looked at that appraisal process. Is there any conflicts with any city council people regarding owning property that is within the vision, eyesight, or that's contiguous to this acquisition?
There is one council member, Mayor Pro Tem Corbett, does live across the bay, not directly across from this property, but close.
Okay.
But he is the only one.
Okay. There's no other way of saying this. If this property is not built on, which if this proposal goes through, there would not be any real quote housing structures on the property, correct?
Correct.
Who would benefit from that other than the people who would use the park that you're proposing? Who else could benefit from it?
The town council feels like the entire population who come to Sunset Beach would be able to benefit from this area. This area of Sunset Beach is a high kayak area, and the closest kayak launch is on the mainland in the current town park, which is about half a mile, 3/4 of a mile from the kayak area that is desired.
Okay. Are there any other issues going on at Sunset Beach regarding financial irregularities or other questions regarding finances at Sunset Beach?
This is Tara Nichols. I'm actually the finance director there, and we have no financial issues. We are in the middle of our audit, and it looks as though we will be adding to our fund balance with this audit as well.
Let me go where I think I'm sorry. Let me go where I think the treasurer was going with a much more explicit question. Will any of the, will any member of the city council benefit directly or indirectly from this purchase? Will their property values change as a result of this?
I do not believe so. It's just putting a park on the waterway or the bay area of South Jinks Creek. I don't know how that would increase a property value versus a home being built there. Wouldn't increase anybody's property value.
Would it, I mean, it obviously brings traffic and people. Does any city council member have a business concern?
No, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Secretary Marshall.
You responded that this was buildable. There's a lot of information that we received about submersible waters and navigable waters. Is it the whole 4 point whatever is buildable, or is that just a small portion of this acquisition?
There is 404 wetlands on this, so there is a portion that would not be buildable. I don't have those numbers in front of me to know what the breakdown is of the 4.28 acre plot, but right now it is platted as 22 lots. And as flooding, our island is low. During hurricanes, that area does flood. But this property is no different than any of the other property that's around it when it comes to.
Alder Wood.
So in reading the information we received, it speaks to the fact that the land is low, that it does flood. And I just wonder why you put a park that will easily be washed away.
Well, we don't anticipate the property being washed away. This is.
The property's not going to be washed away, but the park and the infrastructure that you put there, you knew what I meant.
Anything that we put there would be removable, except for a potential observation deck, kayak launch, fishing pier. Those things could sustain damage, I assume. in a hurricane status, just as any other of our assets could. But anything that we put there, such as benches and swings, would be removable, just like the removable things that are in our town park that's on the mainland on the waterway.
Those are relatively inexpensive compared to the kayak launch and the pier, the other things that you named. The other issue I thought interesting in the comments from the citizens there is that there's much needed parking at the other park. Why would you not invest money in that first? It's already an established park.
We, as the town council, they disagree that there's not sufficient parking. When we have events, we do reach out to the area business owners to allow us to use some or all of their parking lots. And all of those business owners have always been amenable to that. This year, our Sunset at Sunset Festival is moving to the mainland park, and we have established about 400 parking spots that are around our town park within walking distance.
Mr. Butler.
Are you going to have restroom facilities for this park?
The town council hasn't gone into any discussions as to how to improve the park. Their mindset was to save the property from being developed, to have access for the public to the public trust waters. I don't anticipate a restroom facility being built. This isn't a flood hazard zone, so it would have to be above the 12 feet limit, I think. So it would be difficult for us to put a bathroom facility there.
So the answer is no. You don't plan to build it. Is that correct?
I think the town council approving a bathroom for this park. No, sir.
And if you were going to build any, that cost is not included in any of these figures we have.
No, sir. This is just the purchase.
Where's the closest public bathroom to this park?
The closest public restrooms would be at the gazebo, which is midway of the island. So it's probably maybe a mile, half a mile.
A mile.
That's a lot when you're as old as we are, Paul.
Treasurer, you're not as old as I am. You want a little closer than that.
What we do have at our gazebo are actually restroom trailers that in the time of hurricanes, we do remove those trailers from the island. So the town could install a trailer down there that would be removable, but I don't see them building a building like we have at the mainland town park does have a brick and mortar building, restroom building.
How do you think all these folks are against y'all purchasing this land for the park?
Well, the comments that you received were from 5 different individuals. We've had several, 3 or 4 now, public forum meetings where the general public has been invited in to view the property, make comments. With those, we've had very little negative comments. We are also in the process of developing a master parks plan. This council is very mindful that our properties, especially along the waterway, are being bought up and developed, and they are very conscious of keeping as much public trust access as they can. And when these types of things come available, this council is prepared to take action to purchase them.
This Treasurer Falwell, who is selling you this property?
It is the original developers of the properties company. It's Sunset Beach Twin Lakes LLC.
And who owns that?
Let's see, the member manager for that is Mr. Greg Gore, who was the grandson of the developer, original purchaser of the island back in the 50s. And then this Dinah Gore, who was Greg's mother, and the wife of Mr. Edward Gore, who was the developer of the island, along with his father, Manning.
And did they come to you for this, or you come to them? And that while you answer that, also answer, I'm confused, is it buildable or not buildable?
They came to us to see if we wanted to save the property before it was developed. They had other interested parties in purchasing the property, but wanted to.
Is it buildable or not buildable?
To my mind, it is buildable. Now, I'm not a building inspector or planner.
Are you on a sewer system down there, or are you on septic tanks?
We're on sewer.
So you would have to extend sewer to it for it to be buildable?
Sewer is available there already.
Okay. This is Treasurer Falwell, and we have a letter here from the mayor, if I'm remembering it correctly and have read it correctly, who says that the LGC approved, he was told by you or your staff that the LGC approving this does not necessarily mean that you're going to go through with this transaction. It's just a step in the process. Is that accurate?
I don't know.
No, is it accurate that if the LGC approves this, that it's your full intention that this not just be a little baby step in the process? This is like the end of the game in terms of you proceeding with this.
We are scheduled to close this property on September 30th.
And is there any earnest money been put down on it?
No, sir.
So you've locked up 4 acres, valuable acres at $4 million. That's going to be closing $2 million, excuse me. It's going to be closing a few days from now. And there's no, in this quote, arm's length transaction, there's nothing that's binding either party to another party.
No, sir.
Seems odd to me. Okay. I try to let this board know when I'm going to vote against something. I'm going to vote against this transaction. I think there's, I don't think there's any burning reason to approve this when there seems to be some conflicts regarding, some questions regarding conflicts, the value of whose property would either increase or decrease as a result of this transaction. And obviously it's before us. I'll entertain a motion to approve it. I'm going to be voting no.
May I ask a question? I just want to clarify that the mayor that you're referring to is Mayor Phillips. That is our current mayor now.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Is your current mayor in favor of this project?
He has never said to me either way, and I don't recall him making any public statements either way either.
Is the previous mayor against it?
Our previous mayor would have been Ron Watts, I think, and he would have been in favor of this.
No,
What Ron Watts?
that's not the name that's coming to our minds.
Who?
Rich.
Rich Serrato. I don't
Yes.
recall exactly when he was mayor, but he would have been against this project as he was against the mainland project for the park as well.
What is the desire of this board?
Mr. Treasurer, I can't be in favor of this, given it's an opinion that this property is buildable. I know there's 22 units marked off, but that doesn't mean that it was buildable just because somebody drew a plan. The other thing is I hear there's only one property owner that, has property across the way. I've got information that there's 2 property owners, and then there's supposedly all 5 council members that ran an election with the same campaign manager, ran the same slate. There's just too many unanswered questions about conflicts of interest and possible personal benefit for me to vote on this today without further investigation about the situation.
If I may, the conflicts of interest, our town attorney has dealt with the conflict of interest question repeatedly for years and has given the attorney opinion that this council nor the prior council had any conflict of interest.
And let me just say to you that I hear that statement all the time, and it does not necessarily mean anything. It doesn't mean it's the right opinion. So I'm just going to say that right here, right now. I don't know your attorney, but I've dealt with too many local governments where the attorney has given the council inaccurate, incorrect, and wrong counsel. So that doesn't bring me any comfort.
Okay. This is Cindy Aiken. I'm neutral on this matter, of course. I don't vote. But in the interest of fairness, as far as the law says, at the state of North Carolina law at this point, if there may be conflicts, but just because of the location and those who vote on the transaction, the plaintiff would have to show and prove abuse of discretion, bad faith, so that it's going to be a fact by fact, case by case, or excuse me, factual based case by case analysis. If there's a conflict of interest, apparently on its surface, you're looking for abuse of discretion if it gets to a legal challenge.
Well, and I
Okay.
think when you got 5 people colluding, that's the allegation that's here. That
Again,
you
it's-
got 5 people colluding. I'm not saying it exists.
I'm just, yeah,
I'm not saying there's a conflict or it isn't. I'm saying I can't vote on this until I get a little more figured out.
understood. I just wanted to
I get it.
throw out there the law end of it. Then you got your facts, you got your law.
And I need some facts. I mean, again, I'm hearing, in her opinion, she believes it's buildable, or she thinks it's buildable. Again, I need to figure out, is it really buildable?
Other board members? Yes, ma'am. Secretary Marshall.
Is there any tie between the current owner of this property and the dredging project that's going on that apparently is stirring up a lot of question?
No pun intended.
To my knowledge, the Sunset Beach and Twin Lakes LLC does not own any property that's adjacent to the dredging project area. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I'm not bringing anything to mind that they own currently that's on the dredging project footprint.
Okay. Any other board members like to comment?
Ms. Harvey.
Ms. Harvey, you have the floor. Thank you. We see your. You're on mute. Give us a statement.
Thank you. I was being muted by the organizer. So I had a question about a comment on one of the public response responses, I think it was Mr. Serrato, he said that he had made a formal complaint that was submitted to the Attorney General. Do we know any more about that complaint and what the status of it is?
I am not aware. We have not been contacted by the Attorney General's office. If this is in the reference to the 602 acres, I did provide you what the town attorney received from the Department of Justice in the response that I sent to you all. But we have not been contacted directly.
That was a different transaction. Any other questions, Mrs. Harvey? As
No,
board chair,
not for me.
I've told the board how I feel. That I have the responsibility as board chair to entertain a motion if anybody would care to make one to approve this application. Madam Secretary.
Let me just ask this question. How will we clarify? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can stand up and get in.
We're going to bring you.
Get in Auditor Woods' space. How will we clarify these? I mean, there are myriad of allegations here. I understand. I certainly understand the misgivings that the board has. But there's got to be a way forward for us to make a decision, yay or nay, on this thing. So how will we clarify and get to that, given the fact that, you know, you can throw out a lot of allegations that just don't have a hill of beans worth of things. What can we do to get to the root of this? Because I don't really want to approve something that we later find that has issues, but I also don't want to deny what appears to me to be a decent idea to preserve some property to keep it from being built on. What is our, this is a question for the board, what is our path forward to resolve this, assuming we're not going to resolve this today, because there's probably too many questions.
It's a great question, Secretary Penny. I would, it's not the first rodeo for the staff. I would think that Sharon might have some recommendations on, given the fact that this has happened before, how she would proceed.
Thank you, Treasurer. We certainly can try to get definitive answers to the questions that have been raised today. You know, whether or not parts or all of the lot of the area is buildable, the parking information for the existing park, and that kind of thing, and present it at a later LGC meeting.
I guess I am concerned that either it's not that buildable to make it worth a developer's while, or it's not buildable at all, and this is an easy way out and still make money. That makes sense? And so that is probably my biggest concern. And when you take a place as small as Sunset Beach, they go to church together, swim together, have dinner together, whatever. And so the relationship between your developer and commission, council members, again, it's not buildable or not all that buildable. And this is just a really easy way out. And it's just money for land done versus all the headaches and heartaches you go through with the development of 22 units on a piece of property that has flood issues. So that's really where my head is about all this.
And I'm interested in figuring all of that. And don't mind, and others may want to do this, if we table this, everybody's had their questions that they would need answered so they can feel comfortable voting yes or no. Sharon.
I agree. Okay. I've asked for a motion going to approve this transaction. Hearing no.
Let me ask, can I ask the legal counsel? Suppose we don't act on something that's on the agenda, what happens to it? Is it like a raisin in the sun?
Your question is, suppose we don't take action on an item that's on the agenda?
If we just don't act on something.
I think the best thing to do is to move to table or postpone consideration until questions are answered. I think.
I'll make a motion that we table this until our questions are answered.
Second.
Motion second on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Thank you. Motion to table this matter. The LGC members will submit questions to staff that they would like answered by the town, correct? By ASAP? Yeah, well, staff will follow up. And that's Wood motion, Penny second. Secretary Marshall. Thank you. Mr. Butler. Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thanks. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Thank you. And Treasurer. Aye. All right. Thank you.
Contract deadline?
I heard a closing date of September 30th. But, do you have a contract, Jennifer?
There is a loan that is tied to this, but
But is there a contract that sets a contract deadline
with the seller?
This transaction
I'm sure there is.
close?
I don't know of,
We need to see the contract with the seller. Is what we need to see.
I just need to know, is there a deadline sitting in that contract that says it must close by this, or
Whole thing's over.
the whole thing's over?
does the town have that information right now?
The seller is amenable to moving the closing date.
Okay, we're now on to our last item, which is Project Grace. Obviously, this is a transaction that's been around for about 4 or 5 years. I have been continually concerned about a county that is as prosperous as New Hanover County. Terrell County would love to trade places with them, or half of them. That the transactions just seem to be so complicated, and all my efforts along the lines of Project Grace have been on increasing transparency, increasing governance on the deal. I sent a letter last week regarding 3 particular issues that were brought up to me, one of which I thought of came from me. One is the taking the handcuffs off the MOU, number one, that handcuffs this LGC to approve something. If they don't approve it, then taxpayers in New Hanover County have to pay $2.5 million. It's my understanding that the county commissioners agreed to that and passed a resolution saying that. The second issue was that I'm very concerned that, as was stated by a developer, that this transaction, just the library itself, has an 8% profit margin. That's unlevered. If you were to lever that, it's going to be a 12 or 14% profit margin. For a city or a county that can borrow money at some of the lowest interest rates in the world. And then thirdly, the fact that you can pick and choose which statutes you want, but that the remaining parts of this very, very, very valuable city block would be sold for what seems to be an appraised value of $2.5 million and not subject to upset bid. So the county commissioners have agreed to removing the handcuffs, number one. Number two, having a lease payment arrangement where the lease payments will not go above what has been in front of us in terms of the application, and that any change orders that would happen during the construction process would have to be a zero-sum gain that would increase the price of the lease. And then they said they would not agree to the upset bid provision. I have been to this city block 5 times in the last 4 months. I've tried to talk to people. I've only talked to the county manager 1 time by phone, never in person on this particular transaction. I've met with the deputy county manager once when I was down in Riceville Beach for another purpose. Is back before us. I know that we have someone who has driven all the way from Wilmington to comment on this issue in the public hearing. I think that we should give her an opportunity to say what she wants to say, since she has come all this far. There's no one here from the county who's here in person. And we do have some of them joining us by phone. And I appreciate your patience in doing that. If you would like to come up to the podium, we'll hand you a microphone. You take the time that you need to say what you need to say. And we have 4 or 5 minutes to do that. So thank you and welcome.
Not sure I can do this. Okay. Well, good afternoon, LGC members, staff, and all. I feel like I know you all by now. My name is Diana Hill. My address is 2210 Klein Road in Wilmington. I've lived in Wilmington for 29 years. I'm from Ohio. I understand that I only have 4 minutes to make the case to oppose the Arts Center in Project Grace. It is our request that this agenda item be denied. Hopefully when my 4 minutes are up, you'll ask me some other questions so I can say some more things. Clearly, the new Hanover County Commissioners and staff are determined to hand over millions of dollars worth of county property to Zimmer Development. And as Adam Tucker, Zimmer's representative, stated at the last meeting, Zimmer is willing to take it. County commissioners are the stewards of our taxpayer dollars and should be looking at every opportunity to save those dollars while providing residents with the best public services possible. Taxpayers are not the safety net for developers and land speculators. The numbers that were presented at the August 2nd meeting as the cost of the lease were incorrect. Those were the 2021 dollars that they had in the original lease amount. Just since April of 2021 to 2022, those dollars have increased in a value of over $8 million. No way were the numbers presented accurate. We taxpayers are being asked to spend over $1 million to downsize and confine 2 of the most important public services in New Hanover County. If it were appropriate to co-locate the library and the museum, why not do it on the museum site? There's more room, less traffic, and free parking. Why would the commissioners build a destination arts center on one of the busiest traffic areas in the city of Wilmington? The current plan to add at least 250 cars in this Project Grace to the 640 space parking deck leaves little room for visitors to the new library and museum. Even as I speak, millions of dollars are currently being invested in a high-end development a block from the museum. This is an ideal spot to enlarge the museum where it is. Contractor and County Commissioner Rob Zappel concurred with me that the current museum building could be enlarged right where it is located, with the historic armory as an integral piece of that property. Taxpayers' $100 million would go a long way to improve and enhance these 2 facilities. It's not the ability to do it, it's the willingness to do it. If you have to vote on this today, Please deny this funding of the project. That will go a long way to holding these county officials and staff accountable to the taxpayers of New Hanover County. The public has been given much misinformation, just as the LGC was. We need the public to understand the facts of this debacle. The LGC is held in high esteem, and we need your input to save our main library and museum.
Thank you, Mrs. Hill. Anybody have any questions of Mrs. Hill? Secretary Marshall?
Well, I want to start out. Do you represent a group, and what is the number of that group?
Well, okay. There are 1,800 people that have signed a petition on change.org, but that isn't, we've had over 21,000 people calling us, writing to us. We have a lot more people than we have petitioners signing. So I guess that answers your question.
Can you explain to me, I'm not a mathematician, the 8 million increase that you talked about from the numbers they gave us?
Oh, well, I just went, the numbers they started out with in 2021 was $90,160,000 for the Art Center. But that number now, as of April 2021 to September, August 2022, has increased $8 million, according to the calculator. So, but when they came to you with numbers, they showed you $80,000. I think it was 80 something or other. And so what they had said is, okay, we had this other number. We took 7 million out of it for exhibits. So 90 million minus 7, they came up with 80,000, 80 million, which isn't possible anyway. But so, oh, sorry. So that's one of the things that they were using. They did several things in that presentation. They used 2021 numbers. When they showed the tax revenue, and Auditor Wood caught this, they acted like there was going to be zero tax revenue on the right-hand side of that thing. The $12 million for the occupancy tax, there is no hotel yet. Now, there may be a hotel, but they don't have a hotel. When somebody, I think somebody asked what else is on that property, that block, and I think the comment was it's an old used dealership. Well, that old used dealership is the Boris Building, and it's listed on the National Historic Registry. And according to Travis Gilbert, the director of Wilmington Historic Foundation, every piece of, I'm not going to probably say this right, but stay with me, every piece of historic property that gets demolished in a city impacts the handprint, so that when somebody else wants to come and renovate a building, it impacts how much taxes, federal and state taxes they get when they renovate the building. So by losing this Boris Building, that's also an impact on the city of Wilmington. Now the city, when the building was purchased, the city paid $300,000 out of the $500,000, with the understanding that the A library would stay downtown. Unfortunately, not this one. So now that money is over, that $300,000 is over $1,098,000. So the city, some of us pay city and county taxes. The city is now giving over to the county $1 million of our tax investment, but of course, I just want to save the library. One of the things they said about the library is that the third floor doesn't handle the tonnage of books, and that's true. And when we bought it in 1978, it didn't that either. But what's up there are the admin spaces, lots of meeting rooms for the community. That's the same kind of space they're going to put in this art center. So why would we knock down a 1,500-ton building because the third floor can only hold meeting rooms and admin offices, when we're going to build another 84,000 square foot building on the same block that still only needs to hold that much? Of course, I think you all know that before June 20th, there was the MOU said if the county pulled out of this agreement, it would cost us $800,000. If the LGC turned it down, it would cost us $0. But then on June 20th, which I think it was scheduled then, your meeting was scheduled for July 12th, maybe. On June 20th, all of a sudden there's an amendment that no matter what happens, we're going to give these developers $2.5 million. And that's because they want the plans. Just as I think it was you, Reverend Vogel, sorry, Treasurer Vogel. I think it was you that said they could have negotiated for those plans any day of the week. They didn't have to do this. I've met with Chris Coudray, I've met with Deb Hayes, I've met with County Commissioner Zappel, and I've met with the city attorney. No one can tell me why this is a good idea. This does not make sense. I know that the Winston-Salem Library was brought up at the last meeting, but I hold the Durham County Library as the poster child. They renovated their library back in 2019 or whatever. They renovated their library. They added 30,000 square feet, so it could be the same size as our library. It was for $47 million. There's nothing wrong with the building that has our library. The basement is dry as a bone. I've been down there. The Bellamy Mansion, the League of Women Voters, the City of Wilmington, the county commissioners, all keep their cardboard boxes of storage down in that basement. I've got pictures of the basement. There's nothing wrong with this building. So, of course, my hope and dream, and everybody that's in opposition to this, is that we could have the same kind of library that Durham has. And as I was speaking to Mr. Butler earlier, you know, the first European to make landfall, the first European explorer that explored the Atlantic coast, made landfall in 1524 at this what now about Curry Beach. And the ship that he was sailing, Le Dauphine, is now a replica is being made in Rouen, France now. And it's going to sail across the sea in 2024, 500 years, to New York City. This is probably the one person that never came to North Carolina and then went to New York City. Everybody else comes the other way. But we should be enlarging our library to show that we in New Hanover County, we have every example of every historic event that's happened east of the Mississippi, including the landfall in 1524 and the 1898 coup. We should be having an international destination library, museum. And it's only because, well, I can't tell you what it's caused, but I don't know anybody that wants to spend all this $1 million of money to a developer who's going to knock down a building and then build a little smidgen of it. So I know I've talked over somebody else's 4 minutes by this time. Are there any other, did I leave any room for questions?
Any other questions from board members?
I don't know if you
Comments or questions? Yeah. Comments or questions? Comments or questions?
Do you know anything about the legislation that requires on these public-private partnerships, Mr. Treasurer, Secretary Treasurer, what is the standard percentage of county invests and the developer invests? Was there special legislation that changed that? Can you handle it? Council, do you know that? Can you answer that?
Yeah, Mr. Butler is asking about the downtown development statute and the percentages of each of the public and the private. Just a moment, let me make sure I quote it correctly. The standard is, my statutes are right. Here we go. Okay. Okay, and just real quick history. At the time that the General Assembly gave New Hanover County their special legislation, only cities could do downtown development projects. And it was a 50-50 split. It's still a 50-50 split. The new legislation includes counties, but at the time, New Hanover County was given their special law, local law. It's 75-25. The developer, the county is capped at 75%. Correct. And everybody else, that is correct.
But the New Hanover County has changed to where the developer has to put less and the county puts more.
Yes, the developer could put more,
I mean, that's what the law.
but yeah, they have to put in,
Like the statute has been changed that favors the developer in New Hanover County.
in New Hanover County's case, yes. And correct.
The other comment that comes to me, well, hell, they can hear me better than probably listening to that.
Just the people
Is the percentage of low-income people that would have housing in this facility. I think the goal in New Hanover County has generally been 15%, and in this project, it would be 5%. I think that's been the general guideline, but that is up to the county commissioners to determine what the percentage is.
Hang on just a minute, please.
It's Ms. Hill again.
So that it was interesting that when the commissioners are making their pitch last month, they said that they wanted to have this private partnership, so private-public partnership, so they could have control over the what was going to be built there. But they only put in 5% workforce housing. It's not even not even affordable housing. It's workforce housing, and not to beat a dead horse, but this is the same group of people that are building a $46 million government center right next to a strip joint. So much for that.
Any other questions from LGC board members? And if not, I personally ask for Chairwoman, former Senator Bozeman, to join our call, as well as the county manager. Chairwoman and former Senator Bozeman and I have worked together for 14 or 15 years. And I would say that in one of our last conversations, she said, just put it up for a vote, up or down. So I want to just give them an opportunity to speak if they'd like to.
Mr. Treasurer, can you hear me? Members of the LGC?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you very much on my behalf and behalf of the board to put this up for a vote, up or down, so that we can move forward. Unlike Ms. Hill, I've lived in New Hanover County my entire life, and I can remember when it was about Barry. And to talk about the history of this building to people with color who are just a little bit older than me, it reminds them of segregation, because when the Beltberry building was there, they were only allowed to shop in the basement. It is untrue. I do not think Mrs. Hill is qualified to give opinions on how good the building is. Quite frankly, the building, the homelessness problem is a blight on downtown Wilmington, and what the commission wants to do, as well as the city joins in us supporting us, is to make this a gateway to Wilmington and to New Hanover County. What we're doing is saving the main library. We're making it better, bringing a museum there, making it much more functional and just a better use of taxpayer money. I do have Madam Vice Chair Hayes is on the phone too, and county staff is also there to speak, please, on any of the technical things that Mrs. Hill was talking about.
Ms. Bozeman, Chairwoman, excuse me, Senator.
Julia's fine.
Okay. When you, Treasurer Falwell, when you say vote up or down so we can move on, what does moving on mean to you?
Well, if you vote up, we'll move on with Zimmer. If you vote down, we'll move on with somebody else.
we do plan on moving forward with it.
Okay. And a follow-up question, if I may.
Yes, sir.
If moving on to somebody else, how does that G-haul with the fact that you only had one bidder on this to begin with?
My understanding from legal is that we can enter into private negotiations with any builder that we would choose
Okay.
without needing an upset bid, without being required to have an upset bid.
They can, yeah.
So we just asked, and I would like to say hello to the two other people that I had to serve with, Madam Secretary Marshall and Madam Auditor Wood. We all appreciate your combined decades of public service to the great state of North Carolina, and we as the commission just want to be able to move forward with this project, whether it's with Zimmer, which the commission would prefer, or if not, then we'll move on with someone else. But we do have all intentions of moving on.
Thank you, Treasurer Foley. One other question. When you say the statute allows you to, then am I incorrect in saying that the Zimmers were chosen because they were the only bidder?
I was not on the commission then, but I would say so. I could defer over to the staff and manager, but.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Hang on just a minute, Mr. Chair. Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir.
If that were the case, why did you have, if you could have just picked a developer, why did you have to go through that process?
I don't think that we could have just picked a developer then, but I think my understanding from hearing from legal is that is what we can do now. And
Okay,
I believe the county attorney's on the phone. Wanda, if you want to correct me or elaborate, I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer, and to the LGC. Thank y'all for giving us the time to speak to this. The statute does not require us to go through a traditional bid process. We chose to go through an RFP or an RFQ to determine what the interest in the marketplace is. We had 2 responses. That was something that the county chose to do. We received, once we qualified both entities that expressed interest, we only received an actual proposal from Zimmer. We were very excited about their interest. They know our community. They want to invest in our community. They were the only one to submit a proposal. So if the LGC declines this particular model, we do have the statutory authority with the legislation that was secured to proceed with another developer. We've already been through the RFQ process. We've been through the RFP process. We could engage with another firm, and we would have to explore a development model that would ultimately be acceptable to the local government commission. As the chair said, the county commission believes in this project enough and understands the value proposition that it did make the change to the MOU that Ms. Hill spoke about, because it wants to own the final plans to proceed with redevelopment of that block. The county could choose to proceed only with the public investment and no private investment. And so only half of the block would ever be developed. But it believes, meaning the commission believes enough in the combination of these facilities, the design that is there, that it wants to own it and have the ability to proceed at a minimum with relocation of the museum to that site and a new library on that site. So we could enter into negotiations with another developer. As the chair said, that's not the county's preference. This is a deal that's been 5 years in the making. It has been responsive to community input. That's very much why we're 5 years in the making, modifying the project to be sensitive. And so with the deal as it's structured, we can guarantee the housing investment. We can guarantee the private investment. We can guarantee the outcomes that we have promised to our community. And I believe one of the LGC members spoke to, there's a standard of workforce housing in the county. That is not true. There is no defined goal. What the county commission has decided to do with public projects that it's involved in, when there's a housing component, that it will require not less than a 5% set aside for workforce housing. That is what Zimmer Development has promised, not less than 5% in the residential units. And it's also the not less guarantee for the project here at the government center. So, Mr. Treasurer, I hope I answered your question about the why we can proceed. There were a couple of other things about costs, about the Boris Building, that certainly we would like to speak to when the time is right.
Okay, well, time is right.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you. As it relates to the suggestion that costs have gone up, clearly costs have gone up, but the guaranteed lease cost to the county has not. That has been a fixed price. What I believe Ms. Hill was alluding to is originally the design contemplated that this in total deal would include the cost of exhibits. We chose to take that out, and in turn, the lease payment was reduced to reflect those savings. So the $4 million lease payment is fixed and guaranteed and reflective of the project that has been negotiated. It's always been that, and it will always be that, assuming the LGC lets us proceed. As it relates to the Boris Building, it is a contributing structure to the historic district. And so we can have that building taken down, and there are height restrictions associated with what can go in its place. And the beauty of working with a professional design team is what Zimmer has put forward accommodates and allows for those height aspects of the removal of the Boris Building. So there is no risk to the historic preservation designation for Wilmington. We are doing everything that is by right from a zoning perspective and by right from a code perspective as it relates to the historic district. Again, I'm going to reference the housing piece. There are two projects that the county is involved in from a public perspective that they have required not less than 5% on both of those. There is no stated goal of 15% when there's public participation. That may be something the city of Wilmington is going to do. They have never required a set aside in any project that they're party to, but the county does have a 5% set aside requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I will open it up to see if anybody on the virtually has any questions regarding this. I take Chairwoman Bozeman at her word that voting it up or down, they don't care. I have always preferred that this transaction have the highest level of transparency. I've preferred that that the county of New Hanover take advantage of the economic juice that they have, and they have the juice to even actually just build a library and probably not take on any debt at all, given what's going on positively in New Hanover County. And then any remaining piece of that property, put it up for upset bid. I think that brings the most value to the citizens, but that's just one person's opinion. So,
Mr. Treasurer, could I offer a county context to that? We certainly agree in a traditional setting, upset bid is the appropriate path. But with the upset bid process, we cannot attach the conditions that we want that generate the outcomes that benefit the community. We've got 3 legal opinions, one of which is from our own attorney, 2 from the School of Government, that say our interpretation of that is correct. In a traditional upset bid, which is what has been asked, we cannot guarantee the community, number one, that investment will begin within 36 months. We cannot guarantee that there will be residential development, much less residential development with a guaranteed set aside of 5%. We cannot guarantee that there would be a hotel that generates room occupancy tax to the benefit of the city of Wilmington and the downtown convention center. In fact, we can't guarantee that there would be any investment. There is a corner block, 2 blocks from this particular site that a developer bought some 10 or 12 years ago, took the building down, and it's a big hole in the ground because there are entities, we're not one of them, but there are entities that have the financial capacity to buy property and sit on it and hold it until the ends meet their need. That's not where we are. The only way we can ensure private development that we believe the community wants based on input from the community, the return that the county commission wants with the associated incoming tax revenues, is to put conditions on it. The only way we can achieve that is through a traditional public-private partnership, which we chose not to pursue. We wanted the downtown development agreement. We secured the legislation to accomplish that. Those are the only 2 mechanisms that would allow conditions for use on a sale of a public asset to a private entity. So we are very sensitive and understand your concerns with not using the upset bid, but we believe that this is the only way to guarantee the investments and the outcomes that are good for our community.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Cindy's going to say a few words, and I'm going to hand the floor to the Secretary Marshall.
Okay, excuse me. I say 2 things. Number 1, always we're keeping in mind what the findings are, but based on the analysis I sent yesterday, it's an integral deal, right? Kind of tied it at the hip. Our public policy on comments says that if someone wants to speak, they need permission. So we have a gentleman with the Historic Wilmington Foundation who would like to respond to something the manager or one of the county people said about historic property.
Secretary Marshall, you can choose whether you want to go next or wait.
Okay, this is Travis Gilbert.
We will hear from this gentleman, and then Secretary Marshall will have the floor.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. This is Travis Gilbert, Executive Director at the Historic Wilmington Foundation. I just want to most respectfully comment upon the county manager's statement that the demolition of the Boris Building would not adversely affect the Wilmington National Register Historic District. That statement is not correct. National Register Historic District is a collection or concentration of resources that are contributing. And it takes a certain number of contributing resources within a geographic area to collectively create that National Register designation. The destruction of one contributing resource is like a domino. One contributing resource is demolished, and then another, and then another. And slowly but surely, you have lost the concentration of contributing resources that affords that National Register Historic District designation. Across North Carolina, over the past few years, there have been many National Register Historic Districts that have decreased in size due to the demolition of contributing resources, such as the Boris Building here in Wilmington. I think the closest example to Wilmington is up in Kinston. Their boundary was decreased in the last survey. Wilmington is seeing an alarming number of contributing resources being demolished, and we believe that the Boris Building will just continue this trend. Now, the financial repercussions of a boundary decrease of a National Register Historic District are tied to historic preservation tax credits. We are fortunate here in the great state of North Carolina to have a piggyback historic preservation tax credit program, meaning that you can receive state tax credits for income and non-income producing properties, and you can couple those with the federal income producing tax credit possibilities. Only contributing resources, either individually listed or collectively in a National Register Historic District, are eligible for those tax credits. So a boundary decrease due to the demolition of buildings such as the Boris Building would adversely affect other adjacent properties eligibility for those historic preservation tax credits. And we have many examples over the past decade of buildings within New Hanover County and the city of Wilmington utilizing those historic preservation tax credits.
Mr. Treasurer, if I might offer a response.
That's the manager. Okay. You want to do Miss? Okay, Secretary Marshall first.
My question is totally different, so I'll defer to the response on the historic credits.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manager, if you can make your answer short, that'd be great.
Yes, sir. I'll be very brief. I believe that my comments stand that the removal of the Boris Building itself has no bearing. That it's a tapestry of decisions that other property holders might make. We are not subject to going to review, as I understand from the Historic Preservation Commission. We are operating consistent with what the rules of the city allow.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Marshall.
Mr. Treasurer, one other thing, again, that as important as the historic preservation piece is to our community, the lease agreement is not necessarily directly related to that. As the chair said, the designs that we have are in fact the designs that the county commission believes in, and whether it's through this lease agreement or if we did use cash on hand to proceed, that building would come down, and in its place would stand the design model that I believe Ms. Wurzbacher shared with the LGC at its last meeting. But again, that facility itself does not disrupt the integrity of the historic preservation district. It is what a collection of property owners choose to do with their properties.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Secretary Marshall.
Yeah, my question is a totally different vein. I'm a bit confused about the amendment to the memorandum and then the second amendment to the memorandum. The second amendment in particular, vis-a-vis in the original amendment change orders. As I understand it, and if I'm mistaken, please correct me. In this original agreement, the developer has the right to change the lease amount to the county.
Yes, that was in the original, which is why we have made that amendment in the second amendment to the MOU.
I do not see where the second amendment changes that. It gives an option, but I think the other remains in there. And I'm concerned as to who will be exercising the alternative decision. And the other would bring the amendments to the local government commission, correct?
Yes, that was what the amendment did. If there is a change order that would potentially increase the lease cost, then we would be required to go back to the local government commission because the lease agreement that you are voting on specifies $4,003,000 annually.
Then why would you leave the part in the original memorandum that allows the developer to unilaterally make an increase?
I don't believe that is the case. I think that this language addresses that.
I think you bought a lawsuit. I think that is very much subject to debate. Why would you not want clarity?
Yes, ma'am. Point made. And I do know one or both attorneys are online. It was our interpretation that the second set of revisions that Lisa just spoke to would have superseded what was in the prior document. The intention was to not allow the cost of the lease by the developer or by the county to go up. And if it did, it would require approval of the LGC. And we have no intention of accepting orders that would ask us to come back to you for approval to pay more. We don't want to do that.
Well, I think that's a very good idea. I think we would not want to see this again. But I don't see that it eliminates and takes away the developer's opportunity to do it unilaterally. So that's one of my concerns.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions from board members? I know we're going to lose some board members in just a moment, so any other questions from board members regarding the approval of Project Grace? You've heard the.
May I ask Cindy a question?
Charlie Bruce just called me. Yes.
Yeah.
There's my.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Cindy, and you can defer since you have no, I don't think there's attorney-client privilege between you and I. So you can defer. I know some of these statutes are new. And my misgiving on this I have misgivings on this transaction, but I also have misgivings on not voting for this transaction because I would be sort of putting myself as a super county commissioner kind of thing. But let me know this. Are any of these transactions, is everything in this transaction seemingly legal, or are there some still things that are questionable in your mind?
I do not have any question about the legality, but I will also tell you that the statutes, also the GEO bond, revenue bond, and this statute, the contract statute for LGC approval, state explicitly that the LGC in approving an application is making zero opinion on the legality. For example, you pass and you approve an application, that is not saying that the underlying transaction is legal, if that helps. But I mean, if they seem to be, they are in conformance with the downtown development statute as modified by the General Assembly for the county, check. And then again, you know what the findings are. Necessary or expedient, adequate, not excessive, and check.
But
did that.
But there's also that other provision that says we can think about it. We can think about, consider those other things, even though our findings.
That's right. You may consider, yes, everything that you deem appropriate to consider, you may consider.
But we've got but our findings, in order to approve, we have
a contract, yes, I'm right. So, but for a 20-year lease, the payments over $500,000, but for that, the project would not be in front of the LGC.
And so even though.
Anytime the unit needs.
My concern, I guess it's to the board, is that even though I don't necessarily disagree with anything anybody said here, we may be putting ourselves in the place of some county commissioners who have made a decision that if I were on the county commissioners, I probably wouldn't have made. But that elections do have their consequences. This may be the consequence. This may be the consequences of an election that probably. Never mind. I won't go any further.
I mean,
that part gets me in trouble.
Again, I'm not on your side of the room, but you're asked to find, is this amount being paid by the county adequate, but not excessive? And the fact.
And you're saying, may I ask the chair, and you're saying this comes out to be about 12%, which they could borrow the money at a much lower rate. You'd have to be a horrible debt.
And I'm not representing the county, but they put forth their rationale, the big picture.
Tell me what that rationale is.
I mean, in a way,
somebody tell me what that rationale is. I'm just trying to get to.
They're projected.
Where I need to get to, either way.
I see, I mean, as an attorney, I understand their angst at the state of the law about putting conditions on sale of public property. Got that. So there's that. So all their hopefully future benefits.
12% in order to control.
I'm not the math mind.
8 to 12% in order to control the development. So the question that I have to ask, and
Opportunity cost.
that each of us have to ask, is that is that opportunity cost worth? Is that too much to pay to restrict the opportunity?
Mr. Treasurer, may we explain the deal structure?
We've already, thank you for offering that, but we're getting ready to lose a quorum, and I don't think he wants to do that. So,
okay, sir.
Thank you. Do I? Yes, because of what I've said up this point on this transaction, I'll be voting against it. But I promised the chairwoman that I'd put it on the agenda, and she said vote it up or vote it down. We'll move on to something else if that happens.
Sir.
So if I hear,
as long as you have 5, you'll have a quorum.
but do I hear a motion to approve? Yes.
I'm the only board member east of I-95, and I'm in Wilmington quite a bit. I have had 2 people seek me out supporting this project. I have had 10 times that number of people seeking me out opposing this project. I do not intend to support this project.
Do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved.
Mrs. Harvey? Motion was made by Mrs. Harvey. Is there a second? No second being heard, the motion fails for lack of a second. Thank you. Thank you, New Hanover County. We will, I'm sure, continue to be in dialogue. Members, that concludes our agenda. Very quickly, what else?
And she's only going to cover the items.
Okay. Susan, can you quickly go through the items to cover the vote? And then members, if you'll just entertain, the staff would like to get a picture with the LGC right before you hit the road. And then Sharon has some things. Very quickly, Susan.
Okay, very quickly. Member, I am speaking from attachment C. There are unit updates there for the 6 active units that we are managing. I only have 3 votes that I need you to take this month, and I'm assuming you just want to take them all together.
Does anybody object? Susan, we have the packet in front of us. I think most of this is self-explanatory. Is there any objection to this in one vote?
Okay. All right. For the town of Robertsonville, I have a resolution for authorizing the town to apply for fall DEQ funding, and that resolution is attached. I have a grant project ordinance for $450,000 that is for various grant projects that have already been awarded.
Okay.
And then for the town of Pikeville, I have a budget amendment for 2023, fiscal year 2023, that is for $2,000 that is funded by an appropriation from PAL bill fund balance.
Okay.
And that is all the items I need you to vote on for the units we're managing this month.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to accept those recommendations? Motion second being made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, this is Robertsonville, Pikeville, 3 resolutions. Okay. Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. Going out of order, sorry. Mr. Philbeck? He said aye. Nod your head. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Butler and Secretary Penny, we are voting on unit resolutions. Robertsonville getting VUR grant, Robertsonville grant project, and Pikeville's budget amendment. Hopefully you reviewed those in attachment C. Secretary Penny, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. And Mr. Butler?
Aye.
Thank you. And Treasurer Falwell? Okay, thank you.
Now turn the meeting over to Sharon.
All right, you also have a resolution designating some more units as distressed under the viable utility reserve criteria. These were voted on by SWIA at its meeting earlier this month with the city of Albemarle, the town of Beulaville, the town of Farmville, the town of Lansing, and Perquimans County. All of these scored above the threshold to be distressed for the first time in the assessment this year, and they have requested to go ahead and be designated.
Okay. Anything else?
I have one other thing.
Okay,
that doesn't require a vote.
All right. We have some SEI evaluations that are in your packet for review, and you're welcome.
We need to vote. Excuse me.
All right, we need a vote.
Resolution to approve what Sharon just said.
So moved.
Second. Motion second
Thank
being
you.
made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Okay, designating VUR distressed units. Secretary Marshall? Thank you. Mr. Butler? Thank you. Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. And Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you.
One other thing.
All right, attachment E, I'm not going to take the time to go through it. This is a status on the 14 units that are 2 or more years behind on their audits, and in another month will be 3 or more years behind on their audits. One of them has come in, the town of Bailey. I'm sorry, not Bailey. I don't remember which one it is. Just if you look through this and have questions, please let me know. I just will say in summary that there hasn't been a whole lot of progress made on these. So what are we doing now? We've got to figure that out. Well, I mean, we pushed them to get audit contracts signed. Most of them have done that. But we've still got bookkeeping issues. Most of them. Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you all. Cindy will
Yeah.
tell you that in attachment F.
Yes, quickly, the routine review of statement of economic interests of the members and their designees listed thereon on attachment F. Just a reminder, everybody review your matters for potential conflicts of interest. These will be recorded in the minutes. Thank you very much.
Can we take a picture in front of the flag?
We will do that. Yeah, we will do that. Okay. Lastly, I want to thank your patience. I want to thank for the hospitality. I usually wear my North Carolina 4-H pin, but an intern asked me for that. And, you know, the tradition is if somebody asks you for your tie or your lapel pin, you're supposed to take it off and give it to them.
I did not know that.
Well, that's why you don't wear any ties. It's getting very expensive. So I'm sorry I didn't do that. Very quickly, whether it's Medicare Commission, SWIA, USDA, we are working hard to make sure that we don't try to put the cart before the horse. So working very hard on that. Any other board members have any closing comments?
Great venue.
And lastly, Sharon wanted to make a motion that all the local government commission meetings from here forward be held on the water.
I second that.
It was a great setting.
Okay. Does that include White Lake?
That includes White Lake. We've got a great facility.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank all you board members, Ms. Harvey, Mr. Philbeck, and others for joining. If you'll step out wherever Secretary Marshall wants us to get a picture. Thank you, staff. Safe traveling mercies to everybody. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll. Aye. Opposed, none.
That was yours, isn't it?
We're adjourned.
That was the one who was here at the table for you.